Never fear, Dan is here.
Also Phil.
It didn't really work nearly as well as I'd hoped for, but it doesn't matter, because this is the dramatic duo that delights in bringing you the wondrous world of Warhammer 40,000 via the medium known as Look Out Sir. Hello, Phil. How you doing today? This is what, episode 137? I forgot that bit. This patter didn't really work out the way I'd intended, but I'm still going to let it fly. How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm alive and I am here, so that is a win in my book.
That is the minimal criteria that I require out of life these days. I remain a degree of sentience. I happen to be able to breathe and or process said oxygen into some form of life-giving thing that occurs in the body. I've never necessarily actually given any thought to that whole process, what it does with the oxygen at that point. I suppose it just sort of, flows around your bloodstream and makes everything work, right? That's how it sort of works.
Yeah, that's exactly.
How does it get from there to the blood and things?
Via the lungs.
Oh, does it process it?
Yeah, I think so.
There you go. You can tell I paid attention. Obviously, I spent too much time as a younger man and throughout my life up to that point concerning myself with silly things like Warhammer 40,000 and or Warhammer 40,000 related topics rather than learning.
Do you want to do a podcast about human anatomy and biology? I don't think you do.
I mean, I do. The only problem is as has obviously already been demonstrated, I don't know enough to be able to do it. Although some might argue that I don't know enough about Warhammer to do this, so I guess it's always the way of it, isn't it? But,
Quite possibly.
Yeah. But what are we talking about this week, Phil?
Oh, engage brain, remember things. We are talking...
Warhammer Plus, Phil. That's what we're talking about.
I was going to get there.
Sorry, I thought you genuinely had forgotten, so I was just okay.
I mean... I
can always edit it out, Phil. You can say with confidence now, Warhammer Plus, of course, Dan, and then I'll put that in.
You'll never know whether I genuinely forgot or I was pretending.
Could have been. So we did such a good job with that rehearsed intro.
We are. We're talking. This is all scripted. Everything is scripted now.
Everything
from now
is
on
scripted.
In this episode.
And this.
Yeah,
and
this
this
is scripted as well.
And
yeah.
this.
So we're talking about Warhammer Plus. In the outro, we have a little bit of chitter chatter about Battle Scribe and what happened this week. And that's it. And then you're all shooed off home to beds for an early night until. In a couple of weeks' time, we're bringing you back in. We're ringing the bells, the church bells, to bring you all out to, the Church of Lookout Sir, where we all demand on entry that you give us a 5-star review.
Peter!
Oh, hello,
What are
Dad.
you doing in here, son?
Oh, I'm
What
just...
have I told you about wasting your time with these little plastic figurines?
It's not a waste of time, I like it.
How dare you talk back to me, Peter? It's about time you grew up.
I don't want to grow up. Oh, man, maybe there's something on the radio. Yeah, this is nicer.
Peter!
What's that?
That's right, it's me, the ghost of a award-winning TV and radio presenter, Jeremy Beadle.
Jeremy Beadle?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Now let me tell you here, Sonny, my dad was always telling me to grow up, and I never did. And look how successful I was. So ignore him, Peter, and keep playing with that little plastic crack. And while you're at it, listen to the Lookout Sir podcast, which right now, it's time for the 5-star review.
Wow, thanks, Jeremy.
Who are you talking to with there, son?
Jeremy Beadle.
What? No!
All right, Phil, as is the established format. Well, in fact, what we should have probably done is you should have had you introduce it and ask me where you think I've taken the... No, that doesn't work, does it? Because I know where the review is. Exactly. Where is it, Phil?
Apple Podcasts of Great Britain.
No, you're quite wrong. It's Audible of Great Britain, no less. Ooh. We do well, Phil, in the Audibles on Great Britain. I cancelled my Audible subscription the other day.
Do you know what? I've been thinking about doing that for a very long time, just because I have hundreds of Warhammer Audible books to listen to. I've collected over, not hundreds, but a good probably 20 to 30. And I just don't get
hundreds of hours.
Yeah, hundreds of hours. I don't get around to listening to all of them. So I'm a bit like, I could stop for a good 2-3 years and work my way through what I've currently got. There's no need to get more, really.
No, and with the way Audible works, right? Like, if there is a book that you are actually interested in listening to immediately, so like when, they've just announced that Aaron Dembski-Bowden is working on the next Siege of Terror book, right? And they've got that one coming along. Sounds good. I'm kind of on board with that. I'd like to get that on Audible. I'll just renew my membership, and then when you renew your membership, in that moment, if there's a few other things that you might also want, you can just pay to gain more tokens, because that's like a thing they sell.
Well, yeah,
and then you can just be like, and then cancel.
I think the best value is the annual subscription anyway, because you get all 12 coins or tokens or whatever they're called it's straight away, right? So the one reason why it's sort of fun to hold out is because I enjoy like the 2-for-1 sales.
That's true.
And then I sort of go, what things do I not really care about, but I'm gonna get because it's on sale? So I'm like, so from that, I've managed to get most of the Horus Heresy, and I've got, not say I'm not fussed about it because I'm starting to listen to them. But so I've gotten that, and I've got all the oh god, what's it called? The not Cyphus Kane, or I think I've got a couple of his, and the Gaunt's Ghost. That's it. I've got a bunch of Gaunt's Ghost series, which more than I could ever need.
So, like, for context, just to really kind of stick a pin in this point, because we need to get on with the 5-star review. I think I had something like 6 credits left to use when I was cancelling the thing, and I struggled. Like, I literally at the end just said, "Oh, that'll do." Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was literally like, because they were like, if you cancel, you'll lose your tokens. I was like, this is terrible.
Just get something. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got something in the end. So, like, I just was whatever, because, I had more credits than I knew what to get. Although I've been listening to the Sigismund book, and that's quite good. But that's a story for another time. Bum, 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 bum.
No, I've set you off.
Bum. Bum, 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 bum. 5-star review, everybody. This comes from an individual by the identity of TJ Laud. And they have obviously left us this 5-star review on Audible. They've given us 5 stars overall, performance and story, Phil. We weave a fine narrative, according to the listeners of Audible. And this 5-star review is titled 5-star review. So, I mean, the numeral kind of multiplication. I'm flipping words today. Sorry, I'm quite ill at the moment. If no one has picked up on it, I'm probably all like snotty and sounding awful. Anyway, the multiplications happening here, Phil, are infinitely exciting. I think, who could say what all these 5s could accumulate to over time?
Well, I know.
Anyway, let's hit you with that 5-star review. Tell you the good news. So, I find the long, rambling conversations between Dan and Phil thoroughly enjoyable. The two of you have become friendly companions on many long drives. This is high praise, considering I don't give much of a toss for rules analysis, meta, or lore of 40k. Right, okay, so hang on. Doesn't like rules, the meta, or the lore. In summary, great podcast, would highly recommend. 4 out of 5 stars. Hang on. I don't understand. In addition, I would like to take you up on the offer to have my work critiqued. Oh, hello. Okay. So, I'm going to have to send Phil a link to this, I assume, Instagram account. Should I send it on Facebook, Phil? Is that the easiest place?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, send it on the Facebooks. Hang on.
You gonna read it out so people can critique along with us? Because surely it's just an excuse to.
Yeah, I think. Well, I was trying. I've sent it to you on the basis that I'm not entirely sure where the words end. Is it Biandello? Biandello.
I'd assume so. Well, let's check it out and see if it's a real Instagram.
It is a real Instagram. Biandello. There we go. 500 followers. Right, so I can assert from this, right? So this is someone who doesn't give much of a toss about rules, meta, or lore. So quite clearly enjoys painting.
Well, that was
that's all there is left.
That was my guess, and obviously by the account, that is correct.
Yeah, there we go. Before we get into that, though, Phil, let me read the rest of it. We'll put a link in the description so as you can click through and check out Biandello. at Instagram. The hobby community on Instagram is lovely and supportive environment, but sometimes all you really need is a brutal, honest assessment that the hours of hard work you've put into your hobby hasn't been worth the effort. Keep up the good work, Tom. Oh, there you go. Look at that.
So is he wanting the brutal assessment where we say your minis are rubbish and that you put far too much time and effort into them?
No, I think, well, here's the thing, right? Like, I think ultimately, you know, I don't necessarily feel overly qualified to critique people's minis. I think I can paint to a good standard, and those who might follow me on Instagram may or may not agree. I think I do okay. But I know what I likes, I suppose, so I feel like I can kind of offer an insight based on something. But yeah, Phil, you're the more seasoned, actual kind of creator of our little outfit. So I suppose I'll defer to you when it comes to some of the more critical judgment. Although the second of his images is a wood elf from yesteryear, which I assume is used as a sort of
yes,
testimonial to what not to do.
Yes, he said. Well, no, he said this was when he painted his first miniature when he was 10 years old, and this is it. So it is. This is where I started, and now this is where I am. Sort of vibes with the rest. He's got a good. He's.
I can't be honest.
A very good painter, I would say.
Can I offer some insights on this wood elf miniature that he's got? Because obviously, what's interesting about this mini is obviously time has not done it any favors, right? Because obviously this is quite clearly painted with, like, you know,
a terrible brush and some awful paints left over from my brother's Airfix. So
yeah, so that'll be like the old enamels and all the rest of it. But I tell you what you can really immediately see, you know, as a 10-year-old. You know, there's some really nice stuff that's gone into this. Obviously,
way better than how I painted my minis at 10 years old.
Oh, mate, like, I mean, this is it. I mean, you know, honestly, it wouldn't shock me that with, even in the state that's in, like, you could really elevate that with a couple of washes and a few nice extra kind of highlight layers.
So,
you could probably take
you could stick that on eBay as pro painted for sure.
Well, there's the ultimate praise. What should we look at first then? Where we going? I quite like the look of this wood elf guy with the Spartan helmet because I think it speaks to your
the one
Minotaurs
on
aesthetic.
horseback.
Oh, is there
stag,
multiples of them?
Or the guy with the shield. So the
the one on horseback. Let's look at that. Flipping heck. Yeah, no, I mean obviously some. I think he's using airbrushes for like xenofolds and things on there, or is it more? It looks quite a bit of dry brushing, to be fair, for the actual stag itself.
Yeah, it's hard to. I mean, I'm on my laptop, so if I could zoom in a bit more on my screen, I'd probably be able to tell you. But it looks pretty good. Yeah, I mean, it might have a. It feels like it's got some directional lighting to it, which makes me think, yeah, maybe it would be a xenophil highlight. But as you say, maybe going into some of the detail with. Do
you think I can be honest with Tom about this? I feel like he needs to hoover his background. That is a lot of plastic shavings going on in the background there. It makes it look like he's got one of those old grainy photography filters.
Are you sure? Because my screen is just covered in dust and dirt anyway, so I assumed it's just my screen.
Oh, you just well, mine isn't, and his is. He's got a lot of debris in the backgrounds of those. I mean, again, going for the critical side of things, but I love the expression on the face. I mean, obviously the miniature accomplishes a lot of that, but there's some cool stuff there.
Yeah. You should, if we scroll down a bit, he's got a is it a Star Weaver he's painted up? These are some good fancy ones, but he's done a knightly Star Weaver with a Henry V. Yeah, Sky Weavers. I think you got to scroll down quite a bit to get to them, but they've got like the cross hatching. They look really good. Yeah.
Oh wow! What would the?
Wow. Henry the Sky Weavers with the like heraldry and the quarters on the bike. That's really impressive work. That looks really good, and an amazing theme that I would not expect for 40k. I've just looked at it. There's a drunk guy hanging off the back of one of them as well, so that he's kind of completely converted them as well to like have lances and halberds and all sorts. So it's impressive stuff. I mean, that is a novel army waiting to win best army in the cabinet of Warhammer World.
Well, you say that though.
Sure.
I mean, as those Vipers go, or those jet bike ones that he's got with the guys kind of hanging out on there, he's got some inconsistencies with the visors, as it were, like the windshields. Also, he has
because one has it on and the others don't, and maybe that's because they're maybe it's still mid process. Maybe he hasn't finished them.
Well, perhaps, but yeah, definitely, I'd say strive for that consistency. I think it looks as well, right? And again, this sounds overly critical, but yeah, he was sort of inviting you open to it. And these are probably a bit older, these minis, but yeah, some of the highlights aren't quite as crisp as you might hope for. But I mean, it's still extraordinary. I mean, I think the thing is that really stands out about this guy's work is that there's just so much personality that you can really, really, really appreciate. That, you know, nitpicking about some of the kind of crisp aspects of a highlight are not really relevant, because, you know, what really charms you about these minis is the character, the personality, and yeah, the Harlequin stuff he's done is gorgeous. Just again, in terms of just the themes.
He's done one called The Theatre of War, which is literally was it a Skyweaver with a stage on the back of it. So again, really like Shakespearean / well, I guess Henry V, obviously that's the play. So it all ties in together. So that, yeah, I mean, very clever, very thematic. I don't want to say grimdark is the wrong sort of term for his stuff, but it's got a sort of a similar kind of aesthetic and style to it. While being a bit more bright and colourful rather than the kind of gritty, grimdark bland Shih Tzu, but it's got elements of it in terms of the like the way he converts stuff, like the theming. He's got a bit of like medieval stuff to it, and I think he's got a really good like colour palette and tone. So if you look at his newest stuff, which are all like Wood Elf or Sylvaneth style guys, they've got really beautiful, like autumnal color scheme where they're like browns, reds, and golds all complement each other very well. So, you know, I've given them a follow. It's worthy of a follow, that account. That's
absolutely. Not only have I followed it, I've just gone through and liked every picture.
Well, that's impressive.
Exactly. That's what I've been frantically doing this time, just clicking and liking every single post to show my support to those that support us. And obviously, thank you so much for the 5-star review. And apologies if this went on a fair bit. I might need to cut back some of the opening stuff where we were debating the virtues of Audible, but we'll see how that all turns out. But no, legitimately. Leave it in. Yeah, we'll leave it in probably. Anyway, the point is, thank you so much. It's really appreciated. And obviously, thank you for supporting the show. And thank you for sharing your Instagram with us. It's really amazing and something that actually myself and Phil really enjoy doing. It's great to see what you guys are doing. And I mean, you know, I'm envious of your creativity, and also the fact that you obviously find the time to do all of this incredible hobby, because that is something that I am really struggling with at the moment. It feels like more often than not, my hobby is doing this podcast rather than actually getting the time to do any of the kind of fun, creative stuff.
Yes, hard agree.
Indeed. Anyway, go on, Phil. Expand on what I've just said, and then we'll move on.
What was their name again on the?
On there it was TJ Laud, 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 Laud.
TJ Laud.
Loud.
I don't know. Well, thank you very much. Even though you really gave us it was a 5-star review, but you snuck in a 4 and a 5. What was that about, eh?
Yeah, what is that about there?
Sneaky.
We need that expanding upon there, actually. That's a good point. Why are you saying it's a Would highly recommend 4 out of 5 stars, but you've covered it in 5 stars everywhere else.
Maybe it's just one of those old jokes that the fans like to play on us. Ooh.
Or maybe he's gaming the system, getting the advantages of this exposure. And once we've,
maybe
done this segment,
he's
going to downgrade us.
I absolutely love your Instagram profile, but I will rate it a 4 out of 5 in kind return for how you have rated us. 5s across the board, but in total, 4 out of 5.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping now that I've liked every single picture he's ever posted on Instagram that he'll feel guilty about, downgrading our rating to a.
He can leave us a 5-star review somewhere else.
Exactly. Come on now. Yeah, exactly. Up your game. All right, cool. Well, there we go. We're going to get on with it now. Thank you very much. Transitional noise. Oh, and Patreon merchandise. Cheers. Has it really been a year, Phil? Is it actually a year? When did Warhammer Plus start?
About a year ago.
Yeah, about a year ago. Games Workshop have started ramping up the whole promotion for year 2, and we can't remember exactly where Warhammer Plus started, so we're just going to assume that, this is one of the few things that Games Workshop's community/marketing team aren't lying about, and we will assert that it feels like it's been a year, so it's about darn time we take a look at what 1 year of Warhammer Plus, the premium Games Workshop Warhammer service, has to offer. Again, you would assert, I suppose, Phil, from the outset, this being year 1, Games Workshop would be wanting to put their best foot forwards. They'd be wanting to make it the most impressive year of content possible. So in a lot of ways, do you feel like you could maybe be so bold as to, suggest that this was them at their best? This was their best effort at trying to convince us that there was value to be had from a live streaming and or companion service such as Warhammer Plus?
I mean, that's a deep question. It's the best that they have done.
That is it's absolutely true, Phil. This is what they've done. This is this. I can't really say fairer than that.
Could it be better? Probably. I mean, in terms of what they've given us. Are we talking about more about how they're advertising next year? What they've done to get people on board to year 2 of Warhammer Plus?
Well, I suppose it's all encompassing, right? Because ultimately there are people like you and me who are Warhammer Plus subscribers, who are evaluating the value and thinking about whether or not we want to keep going into year 2. There are people who might be thinking to themselves, wow, a year, there must be so much amazing content on there. Maybe now's the time to jump in. Or more likely, given the nature of us, shiny thing Warhammer players, they're now looking at the exclusive miniatures and thinking to themselves, core blimey, I need some of that in my life. Because I suppose from the outset, right, we may as well say, we'll get it out of the way, the Warhammer Plus year 2 exclusive miniatures, they're all right, aren't they? So, even good, I would argue.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about them. Yeah, they are, well, the Chaos Space Marine, very good.
I think the paint job is something that kind of doesn't... I think this is one of those miniatures I need to see in reality. I think I adore the artwork that it's based off of. I think, the classic Chaos Space Marine artwork. Iconic, absolutely. Like, it's hard.
Mark Gibbons, I think it was, yeah.
Almost certainly, yeah. I think it's hard to, not look upon that and not have, a sense of nostalgia, a sense of excitement and enthusiasm. I think it is a gorgeous miniature that obviously pays homage to an amazing piece of artwork.
Basically, if you look at this and you don't get the reference, you're probably younger than 30, I would assume.
I would definitely assert that.
And even then, maybe younger people would notice it because it is quite an iconic piece of artwork, but it's only an iconic piece of artwork from a White Dwarf issue. So it sort of feels like this is Games Workshop doing what they do best, targeting their core demographic, which is people in their 40s or late 30s, Most
Maybe even
likely,
their mid
it feels.
mid to early 30s. I'd say 30
Okay,
to
for people
45.
like you, Dan, younger 30-ish people.
I'm not
Unlike
in that
me,
younger
who's an
30
old
demographic,
crone.
mate. You can't just go around asserting that, their target audience is just you, Phil. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to,
Well,
I mean, they definitely, whether they mean to or not, they've got you. But
I know. But I mean, it feels like this isn't aimed at someone in their 20s who probably wouldn't get for reference. I mean, it's aimed at them because it's a cool model, but the specific reference that it is and callback that it's to is something that most young people won't have seen, I don't think.
No, potentially not. But yeah, I mean, I think the paint job, although I imagine if I saw it in person, I'd be deeply impressed by how awesome it is, because it does look like, obviously, there's been a lot of non-metallic metals and clever stuff going on there. It looks like a very nicely put together piece. It just, weirdly, again, it's a Games Workshop photography dilemma, whereas I felt like the original artwork obviously had so much kind of weight and presence. Seeing it sort of realized as a 3D sculpted miniature sort of robs it of some of that weight. And I think, the way it's kind of framed in the photograph with the, with the sort of promotional messaging around it, or the plain white background, I imagine this is one of those miniatures that when I see it in reality, I'll be absolutely awestruck. And I imagine when the incredible painters that are out there in the community get hold of it and start doing really, really, over the top paint jobs on it, I think it will just get better and better. So I've got a lot of time for it as a miniature. I just don't necessarily feel like it kind of hit all the right notes from a photography perspective. But then that is common when it comes to Games Workshop's photography.
We say that quite a bit. And look, it looks like it's got the same kind of weird kill team basing that we've gone on about for the other stuff.
Well, I suppose that's more
it
of
could
a
just
homage.
be a generic base.
Well, I think that's probably more to the artwork that it's based off of, surely.
No
pun
would have
intended.
thought so. One thing I can't quite tell. So on its forehead, he's got like a corn symbol.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit like, is that embossed on the plastic? Which I'd hope it is. But it looks like it could just be freehand, and they've added that in by the painter. And you can't really tell from the image at all which it is.
I would assume
so
it is embossed slightly, yeah. I would assume
Otherwise,
so.
it's because Games Workshop have done it in the past where they will freehand in some cheeky detail that doesn't exist on a model. I think that was more of a historical thing, but because now models can just be crammed full of detail, so it just tends to be there.
For the ease of painting, I hope it's raised detail rather than embossed detail. I hope those the discoloration is something that you can just sort of.
Oh, put a wash in. Yes.
Well, not like, or maybe put a wash. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. You can put wash in the, I was thinking if it was a raised detail, you could sort of, run your brush over it relatively lightly, and that would get the job done. But look, I think I would be mad to sit here and say I don't like this mini. I think it is, awesome. But yeah, there's things about the photography I'm not super keen on. But yeah, definitely. I mean, like, well done, Games Workshop. That is a spectacular thing to incentivize one of your largest audiences to carry on, using your service, because that mini is, worth the price of admission. I mean, we saw it already, right, with the Assassin mini from this year's Warhammer Plus. I mean, those were being sold on eBay for like what, 50, 55.
Well, I think early doors like 100 or something mad, and then it sort of dropped down to like 50 or so. Which is interesting. So, a side note, one of the guys I chat to regularly on Instagram was asking about where he can get that miniature from, and I was like, well, eBay's kind of crazy prices. It's like it's 50 quid for the miniature on eBay. You could pay 40 odd quid for the year. And give a miniature next month, because this was like last month, right? So they were doing the offer of if you subscribe now before August, you'll get that miniature at the start of August. So I was kind of like, your best option actually, if you're after the miniature, and I feel like this is what a lot of people do. If you're after specifically the miniature, it's actually quite good value to do the Warhammer Plus stuff. And we'll get more into that later, as some of the details of if it actually is of good value. But yeah, the miniatures, I think, are some of the driving force behind the Warhammer Plus service, which is an odd concept, right? It sort of implies that Warhammer Plus in and of itself isn't good value, that they then need to put miniatures into it to make it more appealing.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
It's also interesting that this time around they've done 2 Chaos models. So Chaos 40k and like a Chaos Age of Sigma type character, like I guess a witch or a wizard or warlock, maybe. A dark sorceress.
Summoner or whatever it was.
Yeah,
similar to the
dark sorceress, and but the 3 or the 4 little what are they?
Familiars.
Familiars, that's it, yeah. At least 2 of them, if not maybe 3, are based on old models back in the day. So actually, I love the little miniatures. The familiars, they look amazing. I mean, I'm less fussed about the sorceress, which is interesting because they've done all chaos. Like for me, none. I'm not fussed about any of these models. Like if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with the familiars because they're cool. But I don't have any of these factions. Whereas before, the Imperium Assassin was a good sort of slam dunk because it fits into so many armies.
Oh yeah, big time.
Less so with the Orc one, and it is good that you can't just always do Imperial stuff. So it is good that they've done some other factions.
Well, again, it's promising in terms of what we might see in the future, I suppose. I mean, I went with the Orc for last year's one. I'm one of the few.
The rare.
The rare. I mean, maybe one day that'll be worth £100 on eBay. Just given the fact. No, probably not, because no one wants it. It's a cool mini, though. I mean, I've got it here in its box. Hang on, there it is. Look, you can't see it, but that's what it sounds like. There it is. I know. Oof, orky. Yeah, it'll probably never get opened. I think I'll just throw it out at some point.
Have I got it here?
You got your assassin again
somewhere here.
Wait,
here it is. Look, hold on.
There it is.
Light touch. But yeah, still in shrink wrap.
This is one of those examples of where we really should consider doing video versions.
I know.
Anyway, the point is that I like the gaunt summony little demon beastman thing. It's cool as well because it quite clearly is a beastman, which is a range that is showing its age in places. So it's cool that they've got something that sort of straddles the chaos, actual kind of warriors of chaos aesthetic, but is also quite clearly a beastman, which is cool. So they still call beastman? Have they changed the beastman?
Are they not like Bray herds or something? I'm not entirely sure. When it comes to AOS, it could be all sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly.
I think my favourite is the trumpeting fish. Familiar. I think he's my fave out of all of them.
Oh, they're just called Beasts of Chaos now.
Ah, okay.
There you go. No longer Beastmen. Beasts of Chaos.
Yeah, I mean, the models are cool. None of them I'm, as I said, particularly fussed about picking up, but I think I'll probably go for the familiars because they look like cool things if I was to paint up, cool little things to paint. What would you pick?
I'd go the Terminator, just because it's such an iconic thing.
Oh, I know. That is true.
It's hard to deny that is awesome. And I think you just need to kind of acknowledge that is a pretty amazing kind of unique thing. It's like the Games Day sculpt from like 2000, I want to say 2012, 2013, where they did the Blood Angel from the second edition box set cover, and it was like, you have to have that. And then they did another one, which was the Crimson Fist.
Oh, for the first edition Rogue Trader cover. Yes, I remember. Cover. Yeah. So they did the first edition Rogue Trader cover as I think it was 20th anniversary, and then as a Games Day mini, they did the second edition guy, which is amazing, right? And that was like one of the early instances of them creating minis that were based on these kind of classic artworks. Well, they did one slightly more recently, just prior to Sisters of Battle coming out, or Depths Rogers. They did the one from the John Blanche Sisters of Battle Codex cover.
Yep. They also
which
did.
I think you can still get.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. They also did Slambo. Remember Slambo?
Oh yes, he was. Yeah,
that was
quite
cool.
a good one.
That was cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is like it's cool. If I am subscribing for another year, which I probably am, more just because of the fact that I do this podcast and I feel like I need to be able to talk about it. So I'll probably carry on. Plus, also they've probably got like an auto opt-in system. So I, due to general apathy, I'm probably back in anyway.
Oh, 100%. That's going to be the case. But that's fine. That's fine. I think I'm okay with it going on to another year. I feel like out of the two, early adopters for year one have, just cause for criticism and complaints. I think year two, if you were to buy into Warhammer Plus, I think year two's the best place to probably start if you are interested.
You think so? I mean, it's going to be interesting, right? Because, let's get into it, all right? Let's talk about the year that was Warhammer Plus. And I think the best place to start is Warhammer TV, right? Because Warhammer TV was at the time anyway, the main event, right? They were this is why you want this, because of all these great animations, all these great shows. You're just going to be drowning in 40k or Warhammer related content. You're just not going to be able to move forward.
And then everything else was a sort of like a bolt-on bonus to effectively make it a bit more appealing.
Yeah, like the PDFs of old magazines and publication.
And stuff,
like the Vault. Fine, right? Fine, it's fine. Warhammer Plus is Warhammer apps are all worthless. I don't know what the Age of Sigmar app's like, but if it's anything like the 40k one, it's a buggy mess. But the thing with the Warhammer 40k app is, even if you are a Warhammer Plus subscriber and you've got the Warhammer 40,000 app, like right now, how many actual codexes do you actually have access to as a result of that subscription? Chaos Demons, which we know is about to go away. Astra Militarum, which we know is about to go away. So,
well, you still get access to all the data sheets for
you get access
codexes.
You get access to the numbers.
You get access to you get access to the bit at the top, which is the core stat line, the weapon profiles.
Yeah,
but you don't get access to the special rules,
which is the game, right? Like the game, like this game more than any edition or 9th and 8th edition is all fueled by the words. Like it's not a system thing. It's not like where they go, this unit has Tank Hunter and you immediately understand what that means. They all have different names for the same abilities, and not knowing what the words are makes it worthless.
It is frustrating when those bits are locked and that's the bit you specifically need. But for most people, a lot of the time, when you just want to check out a unit, you mostly care about its profile and its weapons, I would say. You're disagreeing. Okay, fine.
Almost never. Because the thing is, now in 40k, not almost never, but a lot of the time, yeah, sure, you're going to want to know the strength of a gun. You're going to want to know their wounds. Okay, fine. That is fair. But all the really tasty stuff is all behind the words.
Yeah, because that's the synergies of this is the abilities that either buff myself or buff other units around me, which makes them from a good unit to a great unit. So those are essential to know on one level, but for a beginner place to start, just seeing the stats is enough, I think. And a lot of the time you're because quite often I always use the app still. I don't use it for list building. I occasionally check it out, but I use Battlescribe for that. Let's be honest.
Of course.
But I use but when it comes to playing a game and I was like, okay, I've got a Contemptor and I've not used it much. I like, oh, okay, you're attacking me. I just quickly check its toughness or its movement characteristic or whatever. But when it comes to playing the game, the synergies are the bits I remember, and it's the weird stats for particular weapons or toughness and wounds that is the bits I forget. So I'll just quickly do a search, Contemptor, it pops up, tap on it, okay, cool, I've got that there. And that to me is quicker than loading up Battlescribe, searching and scrolling through the generated, army list with all the stats on it to try and find that one particular thing. So I find
as long as you know
for that sort of stuff.
As long as you know the exact words that you've got to type in
if you can spell something correctly, that's
in the right exact right order, because you can't just put contempt or everything you can get away with, but it's
pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but if you want to look up the stats for Death Watch veterans, you've got to make sure that you remember the thing, and then as you're writing it in, you're and Laud, you're never going to get anywhere if you just start with just death, because that won't get anywhere. Or veterans,
well, no, exactly.
That won't get you anywhere.
There are some weird nuances, because there are some words that are super prevalent, especially when it comes to a type of relic or an ability, because that word is a cool word and gets used multiple times. So you're searching ages for something.
9 times out of 10, though, I find that the things you're looking for are specific wordings, and obviously, if you're a subscriber who doesn't have every codex, you don't get that, right? And that's one of the ridiculous things about it. It's like literally, as the service has gone forwards, it's gotten worse. That's the thing that's ridiculous. Right now, the only things you can reference in that, if you're a subscriber, as I say, Astra Militarum, Chaos Demons.
Is there? You still get some of the? It wouldn't be Warzone books.
What, Psychic Awakening?
Yeah, Psychic Awakening.
No, they're all pretty much dead gone now. Yeah, they've all been reprinted in Warzone. Well,
I think they're still in the app though, right?
No, well they are, but any rules that are in there, that certain very weird little things remain, but where they've been superseded by Warzone books or whatever. So for example, that happened with players a bunch where it's yesterday I could access this because it was in Psychic Awakening, but you've just put it in a Warzone book, so I can't get it anymore unless I buy the Warzone book and put the code in. And it's just, the Warhammer 40,000 app. And again, I don't know what the Age of Sigmar app is, and quite frankly, I don't care. But the point is the Warhammer 40,000 app is utter poo. And the fact that it's gotten worse as it's gone along is astounding to me. As mad as it sounds, the Warhammer 40,000 app was at its best when it first came out, and it was terrible. So, I mean, okay, fair enough. From a functionality perspective, it wasn't as strong as it is now because it didn't have nearly as much kind of. I struggle to say sophistication, but didn't work as well. It crashed all the time. But now it's just.
So I'm just looking through the Psychic Awakening now. There's some bits in there in terms of data sheets. All you've got left are demons, and the one thing that's yet to be updated, assassins.
Assassins actually went into. Oh no, they didn't go into a Warzone book, did they?
No, they haven't, which is weird. I don't know why they didn't do it with the Inquisitor ones. There's things like regimental doctrines for Guard still, and some. Oh no, that's actually all, I think, assassin related. Yeah, I think basically once Chaos and Guard get their codexes, it'll be the assassins that will be left weirdly from Psychic Awakening, and then that's it.
Yeah, that's it. So unless you're really, really into assassins,
I am.
Oh yeah, of course. But it's staggering, right? As a proposition, it's hey, as a subscriber, you get access to all this stuff. It's we don't really. You get the numbers, but without being ridiculous, there are freely available ways of accessing that information. And to an extent, I feel if you're a subscriber, you should just get it all, right? It's you should just have it all.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing about the Warhammer app is if you're a subscriber, just give us all the content for free, because it doesn't replace a codex. People
but not for free, for your subscription.
Yeah, not for free. I mean, I'm happy at the moment. The freebie version gives you the, as we said, the stats for the units and the weapons, and then the abilities, stratagems, everything that can be locked. That's fine. But if you're a subscriber, everything should be free. Basically, you shouldn't need a book to unlock stuff. That just seems mad.
The problem is is they've gone too far down that road, so they can't take us. We can't reverse our way out of that cul-de-sac right now, right? So we're in.
Well, I think they can with 10th edition, right?
Well,
That's when they can do a reset.
Yeah, that's when they can do it, right? And when 10th edition launches and they say, right, we've updated the app at last. Sorry, we lied to you about ever adding Crusade stuff to it. Whoopsie daisy.
They might just get around it by not having Crusade in 10th edition, and then
of course.
Then it was we were going to do it, but we just don't have Crusade anymore.
Yeah, how that happened. Whoopsie. But anyway, sorry we lied to you about that and a few other things that we promised you that we didn't do. But now look, we the app is new and it's better than ever, and yeah, I was like, oh, cool. So what's happening with the old app? Oh, yeah, we're going to just going to let it die. It's like, oh, cool, you're going to update it? Yeah, probably not. Okay, cool. So what happens when you update it, when you don't update it anymore, and then my iOS device won't let me open it, and all of my books that I purchased and own on that app are linked to that app? That'll be like 3 years from now, and we're just hoping you won't care. Okay, cool. So my digital purchases aren't protected in the future.
That is more of an issue for the old AOS app, because you would digitally buy books through the app. Whereas here it's like you bought a book, right? And you get an unlock code for that content.
Yeah, but that's included in the price of purchase, right? I purchased it both physically and digitally simultaneously, right? That's what I did. And I unlocked it on a digital platform, and I own that digital content. I own the right to access it. It'd just be interesting to see whether they
I would assume
anyway, we're talking hypothetical for the future. I'm sure Games Workshop will basically drop the ball and let it just rely on our the fact that we won't kick up a stink, and
it could just be the same app, right? And they will just extend it. So 10th edition content is free. It depends what they do with 9th edition / 10th edition. If it's a 8th to 9th thing and all the codexes are still valid, it makes sense to still use the current app. If it's like an 8th edition reset, then it makes sense to probably launch a new app, and it's a completely separate thing. So you've got your old content on an app that will one day be invalid. Yeah. Same issue with Battlescribe. Everyone talks about how Battlescribe hasn't been updated ever. So eventually it will no longer be usable on iOS and Android apps when it,
Android, it'll go on forever just because Android don't care. But like iOS, yeah, definitely.
iOS is, a bit picky about that sort of stuff.
But what I was going to say anyway, regardless of all that stuff, is we can all universally agree, I feel like, at least on the 40k app, rubbish. It's only getting worse as we go along. And that's one of the things you get. Whoopie-doo, right? That's, we're relatively resolute on the state of the 40k app, unless you have any final thoughts on that, Phil.
Well, here's the thing. So if you are currently a subscriber to the 40k app, but not Warhammer Plus, you're basically spending like 25 odd quid a year on your app, right? And that's just for 40k app. I think if you were to do AOS separately, then be 50 quid, in which case get Warhammer Plus. If you want to move to Warhammer Plus, you're already 25 quid of that is already going towards your app, right? So then you're saying Warhammer Plus would only cost me an extra 25 quid. And then you're like, and for that 25 quid, I get a free model, which is also worth 25 quid, say.
And maybe a pin or a £10 voucher or any of the other little token things they throw at us.
We got at least one £10 voucher, if not maybe two. I can't remember. One £10 voucher and an enamel pin, and you said a free model. So all of that for that 25 quid, say, because we use the Warhammer Plus app, even if it's bad, we still use it and we're paying for it beforehand. You then go, well, actually, it's not terrible value for money for all of those things. And that's not even looking at, okay, we're getting the videos and the animations and stuff. And is that value for money on its own as a proposition is the other way to look at it.
Well, I suppose moving over to, before we get to the Warhammer TV stuff. So there's the apps. Fine. There's the Vault, which I think we can broadly agree is like it's cool because it's nice to go back and look at old things. I feel like they've not gone old enough with it. Sometimes, like I want to go way back, like look at some really mad old stuff.
It's a weird.
They will with time,
because initially they were doing Warhammer. Sorry, they were doing White Dwarf issues that were maybe like 6 to 8 months old, and they were constantly updating them. And I made the point of it kind of makes subscribing to White Dwarf pointless, because actually, if they keep doing this, I'll just not subscribe to I'll not subscribe to White Dwarf, because I know I've got all of those issues in 6 months' time. I can read them then. And weirdly, they don't listen to this show, but weirdly, they then stopped sort of doing that, and actually they then be doing much older issues of White Dwarf. I just wish there was a bit of consistency. I'd almost rather go, okay, we're starting from September last year, and we're literally going to slowly work our way backwards. But instead we get this weird, they just pick random issues here and there. I'd quite like to see some, you say, really old stuff, like before it has the current branding, like the literally issues 1 to 100 would be amazing to see. Or the 80s and 90s era White Dwarfs, which I think they've done a couple of, but not many. That kind of era would be cool. They've done a good job of putting a lot of the Forge World books in there, like the Imperial Armor books, and that's fantastic value for money, I think, because there's so much lore and artwork in there that is fantastic. So it's really hard to get those books as well. They go for crazy money on eBay. So if you want to get hold of them and just read the stories, that's a great way of doing it. Yeah, I always complain that you don't get the rules part of those books, which is a bit of a shame. So if you did want to go back and play 5th edition or 7th edition or something, you can't do that. But I kind of understand why that is. So the Vault is cool in principle. I just never use it. I never think to go and check stuff out or have a look. And even when it pops up and go, we're releasing this week, I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I just never look at it. And I think for 90% of people, that would be the case. It's great in principle, but just not practical.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the reason why, unfortunately, they can't go far enough back to the old, original print run is because obviously there's so much information in there relating to intellectual property that doesn't sit within modern day Games Workshop.
Well, yes, because a lot of it was D&D and stuff like that, which is maybe why. I think mostly it's because up to a certain period they weren't digitally designed, right? So the digital stuff is easy to just roll off into a PDF.
That's true.
A lot of the older stuff would have been physically designed and printed. And, some stuff they might not even have in their archives. You would like to think they've got an immaculate library of White Dwarfs, but...
Yeah, they probably do physically, but yeah...
Well, they might not, though. Or even if they do, you will be damaging those magazines to split them open to scan them in, if that's your only source of digitizing that. In theory, that's something they should be doing anyway. You carefully cutting the pages open and scanning them in, because those pages will deteriorate over time. So as a way of preserving that information, they should be digitizing their archive as best as possible.
You'd hope so. Yeah.
I mean, you'd like to think you could do it without having to split the pages open. Maybe it is possible. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's the thing with White Dwarf now, though, isn't it? It's and to your point about sort of cancelling the subscription for White Dwarf specifically, and the 6-month sort of lag, I think in the case of what White Dwarf became or has become, I don't think it necessarily even matters if you've got that 6-month lag, because White Dwarf doesn't talk about current events at all anymore. It's very, very much sort of, they really, again, I assume in an attempt to kind of, stop leaks, decided that they were going to, keep it very generic, as it were. And
they do sort of theme it to releases. So, they are now starting to talk about Horus Heresy when Horus Heresy drops and stuff. Although, so with Warhammer Plus, they're not doing that 6-month lag. I've noticed that they haven't been, I'm pretty sure, maybe you could check while we're listening. I don't think they've been updating it consistently with the newer episodes, newer issues of White Dwarf. They've been sort of moving backwards and doing some of the older stuff instead. I do find now, actually, I have to say, the last few issues of White Dwarf, I've been reading them and going, there isn't really much content in here that I'm enjoying or interests me personally. because it's like there is so much stuff. There's so much in the Warhammer brand now that they put it all in for everyone. So every issue has loads of AOS, some 40k stuff, some Horus Heresy, some Underworld, some Warcry, maybe a bit of Aeronautica, maybe a bit of some of the Necromunda and stuff. So if you're just into 40k, you're getting like a 10-15% of content out of an entire issue. It is actually crammed full of content. It's just if you're into one particular thing and nothing else, then it's not actually that great a proposition for you. I think someone I think it has always been designed at someone new getting into the hobby. I think almost like the older I've got on, the less relevant bits of that magazine has come. Maybe it's just me, but I'm finding it less useful to me anyway.
I just think, again, though, I think it's the overly sanitized nature of the way that they kind of communicate within that thing. It used to feel like, you know, the Book of Old had a lot of interesting hobby tips and like lots of kind of, you know, I don't know. I always felt like the writers had a bit more kind of, I don't know, it had a better voice, I felt, back then, and they'd always do interesting articles that dived more into lore. Again, I think the thing is, though, right, when you look back at like the 2000s period of White Dwarf, or even like the late 90s, because I started reading White Dwarf from, you know, kind of like 97 onwards, I guess. And, you know, back then, I think there was much more acceptance of kind of certain hobby mechanics, but also the range of miniatures as they were advancing into plastic was becoming more exciting, because they'd be like, look, everyone, we've added this to the Space Marines. And I remember it was like, oh, here's the attack bike, and the Viper for the Craftworlds. And, you know, like they were expanding it, and they were like, look, here's new multi-part plastic kits for Space Marines. And they were exciting. And they had loads of like hobby tips for converting them and showcasing that. But then also they were expanding the lore. So they were going like, oh, well, here's more information about the backstory of the Death Guard, the Thousand Suns, that, you know, they were going more deep as they were starting, because you were at the cut and thrust of the IP as it was expanding.
Yeah,
just so much stuff.
It feels like they do that probably more for AOS because that lore is expanding, whereas with 40k it kind of already exists, doesn't really grow that much. I mean, I guess, yeah, you've got Leagues of Votan will be coming, so they could do some stuff around that. And you know, that they have been doing new, in quotes, the new old factions, right? Gene Stealer Cult have existed, Adeptus Sororitas have already existed, so some of that stuff has already been done and people know what it is. But as you say, it's not like those early days of second and third edition where they're expanding like one paragraph of text into a fully fledged unit, or you know, hundreds of pages of, you know, history or what have you. So you're right, it feels like the bits that they do expand on is just like, oh, we're going to cut and paste you know, a snippet from a Black Library book because that's super easy content to put in because it's not new. Here's some snippets of stuff, and you know, I think, to me, that doesn't interest me personally. If it was hobbying guides, like, here's how you can convert some stuff, here's how you can build something, or you know, build a house for a fantasy tabletop, even though I could do that myself now, I would still find that interesting to look and see in a magazine. But that's more my specific taste of what I get out of in the hobby. You know, I'd occasionally read a battle report, but I've never been like that fussed about the battle reports in White Dwarf. And I know some people are like, that's their iconic thing. I remember as a kid reading them more than I would now, sure.
But again, I think it's just the nature of how information is consumed and effectively communicated right now, right? It's just different. You just have so much more abundance of options. And, you know, back then, getting the magazine and sitting down with it and pouring through it and being all excited about it, that was a moment in time.
Yeah, because that was the only way you could get the information. Yeah, sort of pre-internet. Effectively, Warhammer community does that excitement now. It has the new models and showcasing all the new kits that are coming out. And it also, has, members of the community doing conversions and paint guides and stuff like that as well. So it feels like White Dwarf has changed a lot because of that reason, and it's still trying to fill a niche. Anyway, I feel like we've delved off a little bit to talk about White Dwarf. Yeah,
basically, long story short, the Vault is cool, but not anything that you're necessarily going to use extensively, or at least in my experience. It's nice that it's there, but I don't massively care. Let's talk about Warhammer TV, because that's like the main event of it, isn't it? Let's get into that, right? So, Warhammer TV, a year in review. So I've done the numbers, Phil. I've done the numbers.
Ooh.
Would you like to start on what I'm going to call? Well, you've got animations, bat reps, and fluff pieces, I suppose. They're not.
There's lore and there's the painting.
There's lore and there's hobby. Yeah. So hobby, lore, bat reps, animations, and fluff pieces. I suppose there's an extra one. So how? Which do you want to get into first? Should we start with the animations, or should we save them to last?
I'll just start with the animations. They're the main.
All right.
Juicy.
So, as far as I am aware, in terms of original animations delivered, created, developed, produced, done for Warhammer Plus in the year 2021 come 2022, we had the Hammer and Bolter series.
Yeah.
The Interrogator series.
Interrogator series.
Exodite.
Which I don't think is finished yet. I think they've only just done the last episode. It's something like that.
Well, on the assumption we're recording on the 21st of August right now, 2022. So if there is another episode of Interrogator coming around the corner, I apologise for not accurately representing the full thing. But as a year in review, as it is right now, this is what's there. So you have Exodite and you have Angels of Death, or whatever it was called. Right? So 4 shows.
Yeah.
4 animated shows in a year.
Yeah.
Before I even get into the actual numbers of how many episodes and how many hours of actual content that is, do you feel like 4 shows is truly what you would... If I had said to you a year ago, so when all is said and done, they'll put out 4 shows. And shows in a loose sense of the word.
Yeah.
Would you say to me, oh, that seems all right. That seems good.
Probably not, and I'll tell you why. Because this time last year, they announced how many shows they would be doing, or what shows they would be doing. They didn't say when, but you would assume it would be within the year. And can you remember, or do you know, how many animations that was that they announced?
I couldn't, mate. I know they did. Well, they did a Astartes 2.
Yeah.
Did that get announced?
Yeah,
as part
that was
of it?
announced. That was one of them. I've got the list.
Yeah, Astartes 2. Beyond that, my mind goes blank, mate. What did they announce?
So they announced 11 shows.
Oh my god!
And this was
so they put out 4 of 11.
Yes, and then actually since then they've announced one more that they're doing, which was 2 more actually. They announced, and this was much more recently. They announced they're doing a sequel to Angels of Death and a prequel to Angels of Death. I'm pretty sure that was right. Well, definitely a prequel for sure. So there was Black Talon that they announced, which was an AOS one featuring Neve Black Talon. Iron Within, Altar of Wrath. No idea what that one's about. High Lords, so obviously High Lords of Terror. Broken Lance, which was about knights. Hammer and Bolter, which is one they've done. Astartes 2, which no sign of, but that's the one everyone wants. Interrogator and Exodite, which we've had. Pariah Nexus, which was one to do with obviously Necrons, and then Angels of Death, which is the other one they've done. So, yeah. The fact that they announced 11 and we got 4, it's not even half, is super disappointing. It's like, and the reason why is they announced them because they literally only just got those people on board to make them. Yeah. So they said, here, these are projects that we're starting with. If they had said, here are 4 things that we can definitely deliver this year, I think everyone would have laughed at them and just not signed up to begin with. So it's like massive misadvertising on Games
It certainly
Workshop.
feels that way, right?
Games
I mean,
Workshop's
if you launch a service and say that you're going to put 11 shows on it, right? And even if now we say there's 13 shows that they've announced, right? Like, yeah, like, because 4 of 13 is 31%. 4 of 11 is 36%. Yeah, so they delivered 36% of their promised output.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you could, say, "Oh, well, I didn't say they were going to do it in, this year." They were just saying they are going to do it.
Heavily implied that was the case.
It's it's like how, as we were saying earlier, they said they were going to have Crusade functionality on the app, and it's like, I mean, it could still be coming. But
I'm sure it's coming. I mean, they definitely wouldn't.
But it's been a year, and it's like...
It's been 2 years, Phil.
Oh, God, has it really?
It's been 2 years and 2 months since,
for the app. I can't remember when that... Yeah, but I don't think they announced... I think they announced Crusade last year, though.
No, they announced it at the start of it. They said this is coming.
Oh,
this is in the pipeline.
Exactly. Coming. Who knows when. So I think they need to be a bit more transparent about what they can actually deliver in a expected timescale. Because I think to say, there's 11 shows, most people would assume we would have gotten all of those episodes. So, as you said, for them to have given us 4 shows is quite disappointing. Have I enjoyed those shows? I think
disappointing is putting it lightly.
Yeah,
but
polite way. They disappointed. Have I enjoyed those shows? Yes. Did I
have you?
Yeah, I think
all of them.
To be fair, the most disappointing one. No. Okay, let's go through them. Right, Hammer and Bolter, thoroughly enjoyed. Haven't watched the last 3 episodes because since their main break that they've had, and they've done. But
can I ask you to guess how many Hammer and Bolter episodes are there?
I think there's 13.
You'd be wrong. There's 12.
Oh, I mean that's pretty close. I mean, admittedly, I did just look. So. Yeah,
I think it's 12. Now you're gonna make me feel silly. Like I've got it. All my
no, it's
all
probably,
my maths
probably is. I think they did 8, and then they've done 3. Well, no, 3 cents would make it 11. So
the easy thing about Hammer and Bolter is they actually number their episodes. The last one was episode 12, Monsters.
Yeah,
okay. That was easy. So they've done 12 episodes. What's the average runtime of an episode of Hammer and Bolter?
Are you including the?
No, I'm actually talking about the actual show. I've discounted the
animation
minute of intros and the minute of outros.
I'm gonna say 10 minutes.
The average, so on average, you can basically round it up to about 15 minutes on average.
Oh, see, I was originally going to say 15, but I assume that would include the bits at the front and end.
To be honest with you, with the bits at the front and the end, they're getting closer to 18 minutes or something like that. But it's about 15 minutes of actual stuff, which across 12 episodes is 180 minutes, which is 3 hours. So that's the entire actual content of that series is 3 hours.
Yeah.
And it's a mixed bag. I actually like Hammer and Bolter. I think I think as a series, I think it's actually quite fun.
Yeah.
I think it explores lots of interesting aspects of Warhammer, and I think it's definitely the standout series of the platform. I think it's the best thing they've done.
Oh yeah, it's the best use of the medium to basically tell small individual stories within the setting to show all these different areas. Angels of Death, cool, but all you're seeing is Space Marines doing one thing throughout the entire show. This has given you, if you want to introduce someone into Warhammer, that series is by far the best, because it's you show them some AOS. Admittedly, it's not a lot, but you show them mostly 40k stuff. You show them pretty much every single faction under the sun. It's not just battles, there's loads of other interesting stories in there. You get a real breadth and range and taste for what Warhammer is.
I agree.
And that would be perfect. If that was on YouTube, people would map that stuff up. In fact, people do take snippets and put them on YouTube and stuff all the time. And it gets hundreds of thousands of views. The animation, I know people criticised it, but I like the style. Appreciate the frame rate's a bit low, but I think as the series has gone on, the actual animation has gone better as well.
Yeah, it's no Love, Death and Robots, but it's it's
a poor man's version. But for what is a very niche hobby, I think.
Well, and
it's
I
quite
agree
impressive
with that.
that they've done it. It's like no other tabletop gaming company is doing anything like this. So
I agree.
You can say from that point of view, it's amazing that they're even doing.
100%.
But
100%.
From the point of view of Games Workshop as a kind of global company, and you start comparing it to the likes of Netflix and Amazon and much larger companies, but for us, they all sort of feel the same. You go, well, it's not doing a very good job.
But I think, again, I suppose that's a question, isn't it? Is it fair to compare them to those services? I don't think they reside within that space. I think that, this is a very specialist interest kind of thing, but they are offering or, taking inspiration from those business models. And
and it is totally been pitched to be a bit like those things.
Yeah, it's Netflix. It's Netflix for 40K or Netflix for Warhammer. Again, it's not that by virtue of what they're giving you, but then at the same time, I suppose there's a thing though, isn't it? It's a question of are our expectations in line with the reality of what a company like Games Workshop can achieve? Probably not, but then did they put us in that place? Yeah, it's like you can't,
I think the
expectations were set by them.
Exactly, and I also think everyone looks at the the stocks and shares figure and the profit that Games Workshop makes. They make millions of pounds a year, pure profit. So you kind of expect them to go. They've got the capital to invest in this and do a really good, amazing job, and it's because they're so profitable, we kind of have these high standards for them. If they were a struggling company that can barely make ends meet, and they produced, four different animations, you'd be like, oh, this is pretty cool for a company that is a small local, UK-based company. You'd be like, oh, that's pretty impressive. But they're not. They're a massive global company that makes millions of pounds, and I think that's why we have such a high bar for them. Why they get the criticism that they are. If Warlord Games did as much animation about bolt action, for example, or Stargrave or something like that, a much more sort of niche hobby, or Napoleonics. Imagine if we had a bunch of Napoleonic-esque animations like Sharp. People would be blowing their minds. People wouldn't expect that sort of stuff from those kind of companies. But
I mean, I imagine they'd expect it in the sense that I'm sure people out there have done various things, animated or otherwise, about Napoleonic warfare. But the point is that if Warlord were doing it, we'd take notice. But I think that's the thing. But again, right, 3 hours for Hammer and Bolter. I mean, maybe I missed some numbers. Maybe it's longer in places. Maybe at a push, once you add in all the guff, maybe it, with all the guff, all the logos and things, maybe it gets to 4 hours. Maybe. But in terms of what I can observe from what I've basically done, it doesn't seem like that's the case. The Interrogator. So 6 episodes of that so far. Average episode length, you want to guess?
Probably about 18.
No, it's shorter, mate. It's about 12 minutes.
Oh.
Very short episodes.
They feel long.
Well, that's well, indeed.
But actually, I remember I watched the first episode. I was a bit unimpressed. But actually, then I rewatched it and sort of gave it my full attention and really enjoyed it. And I think I'm only about halfway through watching those ones, but I have actually enjoyed the story, and actually the animation quality, I would say, is way better than Hammer and Bolter, even though it's a sort of similar-ish kind of style. Weirdly, I think their intro is less impressive, and because I remember when they previewed that, and we were like, "Oh, looks pretty awful." But the actual show is way better, I think, than the intro video that they made for it.
Yeah. No, that's
because they're totally different art styles.
I haven't watched Interrogator extensively. Nothing about it really appealed to me. I was just like, yeah, whatever. So yeah, but yeah, like, you know, so there you go. So you've got 6 episodes, about 12 minutes each, so about 72 minutes, or an hour and 20 minutes, or an hour and 22 minutes, or an hour and 12 minutes actually is where that actually resides. So not great, but you know, not awful. Exodite, Exodite.
Was it 3 episodes in the end?
It was 3 episodes, and what was the average length of an episode?
10 minutes.
Yeah, about that. To be honest with you, it's closer to 9, but I was generous and bumped it up to 10 to try and help it out. So yeah, half an hour of you know.
Yeah, not that. That could have been
3-part series. Is shorter than an average episode.
It could have been. That could have just been 1 episode, right? I mean, I heard rumors that the company doing it sort of went under, or it was meant to be more episodes, and it really ended up being, I don't know, I can't imagine that being true, but I mean, who knows?
It could be true. It could be that they had all this ambition to do this big show, and then
it's definitely got potential.
Budget and went,
yeah, it's definitely got potential for a sequel, because it was left very open-ended, and maybe there was meant to be more to that story in the first series, and they cut it short and go, okay, here's a good end point. But that had almost some of the best visuals out of a lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was the closest to Astartes visually. I mean, it was all right. I wasn't a huge fan of that story.
No, me neither.
Even though it had Krieg
fine.
in, I was not very fussed about it.
An elder. It had like, the elder and stuff running
had
around.
The elder. Yeah, that was
beautiful triumvirate of things. It was fine. It was fine. It
had some cool space battles, actually.
It's just nothing. Just nothing really was able to. None of the ideas really established themselves into anything interesting. It just sort of. It was very by the numbers. Elder are doing wibbly stuff. Go deal. And it was all right, fair enough. So Exodite, I think, was not the great success story.
Yeah, I would say out of all of them, that's the damp squib and was the disappointing one. If you had to pick one, it would be that one.
Yeah, I agree. And then Angels of Death, I think, also probably arguably the poster child of the service. The one done,
and that's how they almost like push that one more than Hammer and Bolter. I think
they do.
This is the show
because it's Space Marines, because it's because it's actual. Yeah, the credit where credit's due to the guy who did this. Hell's Reach was a really nice YouTube series. Angels of Death, I gave it a lot of slack, lot of abuse when I first saw it, but then at the time we were watching Astartes, and this thing just didn't have the same kind of chops when it came to the kind of visuals and animation. It's all right. I mean, it's fine. I mean, again, is it the best thing I've ever watched? No. Is it better than the Ultramarines movie? Yes. So it sits in that kind of camp.
I mean, why isn't the Ultramarines movie on this service? It should it's a Games Workshop. It's Games Workshop.
We want to scrub it out.
Well, exactly. It's like the Star Wars Holiday Special, right? It's
we will march for Macragge, and we will know no fear.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And again, I think when it first came out, we were a bit critical of the art style of the animations, but overall,
we were being rude peeps,
maybe
rude boys.
The story it told was fantastic. The animation was really solid, and you get onto the premise of, okay, it's black and white and red, cool, right? I've got used to that now.
Had some fun moments.
Yeah, there were some really good visuals to it. Obviously, there were some janky bits, like the
of course.
The Magus lady looked a bit weird, but overall pretty good. And for the scope that it told, like the amount of episodes and the length of it, it felt like, wow, they put in the work, basically.
Yeah. This is
was impressive.
This, in a lot of ways, is the only thing that I feel like you could actually say deserves to be spoken of as a animated show.
Yeah,
I see what you mean. Interrogator is getting there. Hammer and Bolt is just sort of like a sort of novelty thing. It's like it's like the classic cartoons before the film comes on back in the old days, that kind of thing. It's like it's it's the short before the main feature.
Like in terms of like feature length shows, you've got Angels of Death and nothing else, because Exodite's too small. Even Interrogator's too short, and
I mean, again,
Hammer and
though,
Bolter's
right,
individual episodes.
Average length of an episode for Angels of Death, about 15 minutes, though.
Yeah. How many episodes were there, though?
10 episodes.
Oh, okay. If
So,
if it
about
almost
2.5
felt like they're more-
hours.
Yeah.
About 2.5 hours to watch it all, which
So
isn't
that's
terrible.
a movie, right? You get a movie, basically.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's a fair way of asserting it. Like, if you actually took all the stuff out and just turned it into a feature-length presentation, yeah, you got a 2.5 hour movie, and it's not bad. It's
pretty good.
it's better than Ultramarine. We'll give it that. Is it better than Inquisitor, as in the old 1990s live action film featuring Dark Angels and Chaos? I don't know.
Well, that's like wasn't that 5 minutes?
Yeah, but it's got a charm to it, Inquisitor. A charm.
Oh, to be honest, let's be honest. That is a niche market that they've yet to get into of live action, like slightly cosplay. Because there are lots of cosplay live action videos out there.
I love them.
They should start doing some of that. Do what they've done with the animators. And this is a conversation itself that they took the animators off YouTube. Shut them down, which is a negative, but they brought them into the Games Workshop to create a team. But they could do sort of the same with the cosplay community, because there are people doing these live action shows.
Here's the problem, though, right? The minute you start getting into the world of actually creating films with actors and film crews and all the rest of it, that's when you start to encounter the unions. That's where Games Workshop are like, whee!
Well, I mean, yeah, because obviously, so Eisenhorn was a talked about show, and it's still in production. Well, not production, development, I guess.
Yeah,
and that feels like that's going to take. I'll be an old man by the time that comes out. It feels like.
I mean, you already are.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, but you kind of true, so fair enough.
Yeah, me too, though, mate. Me too. I mean, I was about. We already are. There you go. That's probably
my beard will be much grayer. Put it that way.
Well, indeed. We'll have migrated beyond the tram lines or whatever it is you got going on there.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So there you go. So look, all in, right? All in for animations for a year. 31 episodes. 7 hours, 12 minutes. So 31 episodes means that there was 21 weeks of the year where there was no animations released.
That's a lot.
So if you broke it down over the span of
that's basically every other week you got an animation, right? Roughly.
So it is one a fortnight, basically.
Which is, I mean, you could on one hand go, that's okay, but at the same time, it's not great. Like that. But
again, was it what they promised? It felt like they were telling us at one point they were doing it weekly. It felt like
they were, and I'm pretty sure they then updated their website to say most weeks as opposed to weekly, because they sort of soon realised that they can actually.
But they've met that criteria, because 31 weeks, that's 5 more weeks than half the year. So so 31 rather over and above
could have been worse.
As long as they did 27 episodes in a year, that could have been quantified as mostly.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Well done them for for achieving their
target.
Their target there. Well done.
I mean, I guess if we're gonna throw in a bonus thing, which I know you probably won't count, but they did do the Horus Heresy trailer, which was a pretty phenomenal animation.
Are you for real? Because and the Kill Team trailer, they did that one as well, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean but the thing is, I feel like the Kill Team one was already like made sort of before the Warhammer Plus was coming. Because they sort of it was funny because they showed that and people were like, is this an episode, is this a show? No, it's just a promo trailer. And I will say this, the one sort of downside of it, so they've got all these community people, got them on board, got them off YouTube, they've gone, okay, we're doing our own in-house team, we're going to start doing shows for you, we're going to do 11. And then actually what they've done is, actually guys, can you just do a bunch of promo videos to promote our products? rather than do the TV shows that you're meant to be doing for Warhammer Plus. Because I would say,
I don't know if that's true.
Well,
I don't know if that's true. I think they probably were working on those promo videos before. I mean, obviously they did the armoring of a Space Marine,
which was again a concept. That was a proof of concept for the Warhammer team. So that was something that they had specifically done. I feel like the Horus Heresy animation was done by the Astartes guy, because there's so many visual similarities, and the way it's animated has his signature to it. And now I could be completely wrong. That's just me speculating. But it feels like he's done that in addition to assuming he's still working on Astartes too. And then even recently, so they just announced the new Land Raider, I can't remember what type, Proteus, is it? The plastic Land Raider? That has a tiny little animated Land Raider at the very beginning. And I'm like, well, that's unnecessary. Did someone from the Warhammer Plus studio do that? Like, rather than do whatever else they're working on? Or maybe that was a snippet that they took from one of the videos that they're working on. I don't know. But it feels like Games Workshop are like, abusing is the wrong word, but using the Warhammer animation studio to make promo videos for their product, when instead they should be much more dedicated to doing the shows that they promised us.
I don't know if that's true, though. I think you can make the assertion. I don't think, when I watched the Heresy video, it is good, but I'm not convinced that it's. I'm not convinced it's by the guy who did Astartes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it might not be.
But the thing is like, yeah, it's fine. It's a good thing. I mean, my question often is why they do these trailers, because, like, they just sort of reside within their own ecosystem, right? Like they're communicating to people who already like what they're doing, and I suppose it's cool for us. But it's a weird thing, because, like, you think, like, well, I guess it's supposed to bring people who might not already be interested in the setting into the setting. Yeah, like you can be like, look, this is Warhammer, get excited, but then they don't put it anywhere.
They did for so the Age of Sigmar Dominion animation that went on YouTube pre-rolls, so they did. Did they? Yeah, I saw that one quite a bit on YouTube. But I don't think they've done it for Horus Heresy, although I think that one's been shared everywhere. So that obviously
went on their YouTube. It's a cool trailer.
Loads of YouTubers use it. So it has sort of been shared around in that respect. And that is an argument that we've always talked about, like, why is the Warhammer Plus a closed, behind a paywall system for pre-existing fans and not put out for free on YouTube or even on Warhammer Plus, but ideally YouTube, because then non-40k, non-Warhammer players will see these, get excited and play the game. And ultimately, I've always said that is a much better investment to capture new and younger players that will then watch those shows, then go and play the game. That is a better use of your money than just making pre-existing customers pay more to see stuff that they already enjoy.
But, well, I suppose it depends on where they feel like, what they feel like the opportunity is, and whether they think that they're going to be able to bring new people in, or whether they just feel like they need to double down on the one they've got. They're like, we're only ever going to have as many players as we have right now, so we must milk them. Well, milk them for all they're worth.
Well, they're certainly doing that for sure. It may be that thing of they're doing it, so it's like, we're not doing this as a loss leader, because I think they're very risk averse. So they're like, okay, we're going to monetize this as soon as possible using our existing fan base to develop and build up our own animation studio. When it gets to a certain size, then we can start doing some freebie promo pieces, fluff pieces to reel people into the game, like the Age of Sigmar, like promo videos and stuff. So I think that they are slowly doing both, but I think actually putting out free shows would give them way more like customers and stuff, like new customers into the hobby.
Yeah, no, fair. But there you go. So so in terms of animations, that's what they put out. Fine. Personally, I think it's under it's beneath my expectations, right? Like it hasn't reached my expectations as a service. I was led to believe I would have had more and of a more higher quality to have enjoyed. But fine. When Astartes 2 rolls out, all might be forgiven, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, well, it feels like that's all anyone's really focused on in terms of what they want from the animations is Astartes 2. It's almost getting to the point where I'm not too fussed. Obviously, it will be amazing when it does come out. But I also enjoy the other stuff. I've enjoyed Angels of Death, even though I wasn't expecting to. Interrogators are all right. Hammer and Bolt is fantastic, so more of that.
Yeah,
please.
I like Hammer and Bolt.
It'd be interesting to see if and when the other shows come out. Maybe by the end of year 2, we would have had all of the 11 promised shows. Maybe by then they've all come out.
Definitely,
because effectively they've had from then to now they've had a whole year to work on these animations.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of them should hopefully be about finished. So
definitely
by the end of next year, so 2 years in total,
we'll have 8 of the 11.
If we haven't got all of them by then, like, god damn it, that'll be frustrating. We should have had all of them by then. Which even if that is the case, so that means we're getting 6 shows this year. So no, 7 shows we'll get this year if we get all of them. And then the other 2 promised ones, prequels for Angels of Death, I don't think they'll come this year because they're taking.
Wouldn't it make you laugh if the guy who did Angels of Death is the only reliable guy? And he's just the only one churning it out.
He could probably churn it out pretty quick.
He's like, it's like literally, it just becomes the Angels of Death channel. Like just constantly.
Here's another thing to discuss: is they've got all those creators from YouTube who might not be very professional, might not be good working to deadlines, might have been really good at doing one thing, but really struggle to turn a 15-second clip on YouTube into an hour-long show. So a lot of those projects might have fallen through due to whatever reasons, financial, personal, professional, because some of them just can't follow through on what they signed up for. So I wouldn't be too surprised if a couple of those shows never see the light of day for whatever reason.
It also really depends on what Games Workshop is like as a production house. I mean, who did they put in place as a producer, as a as a team to manage and help them build everything out? Who's giving them these are the things that if you haven't got the right people in the right places to support these creators, it's going to be difficult, right?
I don't want to see animators flogged to death to hit deadlines and to be paid pittance.
Absolutely
you want them to be paid well for the shows that they're putting out, and you really hope they are, and I would assume so, because
I hope so.
It sounds like a load of them were making a killing off of Patreon and places like that.
I mean, the Astartes guy from Patreon perspective must have been
crazy money. Yeah,
mad money.
It'd be interesting to see what he's doing now.
I would feel comfortable asserting that he doesn't make as much as he makes right now, but he's being given the freedom to, or he doesn't make as much now as he used to, but he's being given the freedom to carry on doing what he's doing.
Yes, and I think being given a chance to make official Warhammer stuff is huge, and I think a lot of people will take a pay cut to do that and to work for Games Workshop, and I think Games Workshop knows that, and that's why they've always been rumoured to not pay their staff a huge amount in terms of. But I think that's just the games industry in general, right? For tabletop games, it's just a small struggling industry, except when you're a multinational £1 million company.
Well, indeed. Anyway, right, so animations, beautiful.
Yeah.
We understand. We've got our heads around that. 31 episodes across 7 hours of relatively all right content with the odd little gems sprinkled in here and there. Bat Reps, Phil. Now, I'll tell you one thing I wanted to say about Bat Reps that was a funny thing, was I lost all confidence in Bat Reps when the guy they'd hired specifically to work on the Bat Reps didn't work there anymore after a month.
Yeah, it was a couple of months he disappeared from the face of the earth, and we were like, wait, what?
You know what happened to him? Did he ever speak publicly about that? He just went.
Yeah, that was Patrick. Yeah, because he was a Warzone Moloch on YouTube. He appeared on some of their stuff beforehand.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, he's disappeared. They never Games Workshop never made an announcement about it, but they never do. And then he's not since gone back to there either. So I guess he's just gone back to his previous day job.
Whatever that would have been. Fair enough. Well, good luck to him. Interesting though, wasn't it? It was literally like, and again, one of the things that sort of frames the intriguing nature of their commitment to this service when the guy they've brought in to manage it isn't there anymore.
I don't know. It sort of felt a bit bad because when the first few episodes he did, we were like, oh, he's a little bit wooden, and it just didn't quite work. But at the same time, we were
he's finding his voice.
Yeah, exactly. We were like, just give him enough time, and I'm sure it'll work out. And I think he's playing games with other people that he's never, he barely knows because he's only just started working for them. So it all taking time to get that rapport with someone. Whereas what they've done is they've got Nick Baton and you've got Louise and I can't remember the other guy, big like curly red hair, I think.
Oh, him, yeah. You always see him around, but I never remember who he is.
So obviously they all know each other and have been working together for a long time. So I feel like they've got that natural chemistry of like friends and workmates. And yeah, I like the battle reports. I haven't watched a whole lot of them, but I've always felt like they've been really professionally put together, like really hired, like probably the best shot battle reports, especially the intro bits of the armies. Like so personally, whenever I watch battle reports, 90% of the time I'll just watch the bit where they talk about the armies and their army lists because that's a bit I find interesting. The actual game, I'm like can't care less about half the time.
I agree with that.
But I'll sometimes have one on in the background and I'll watch. But they've done really good editing, like during the actual battle reports as well. So yeah, I can't really complain about them. I think they've done a pretty good job in terms of like the style and the way that they've gone about doing them the kind of games that they've done. They've done a mixture of like competitive and like narrative, and like they did a custom weird Christmas one featuring the Red Gobbo. Yeah, they've done all sorts.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think the work they've done on the bat rep front, despite the fact that they obviously lost Patrick, you said his name was right.
Yeah, Patrick.
Yeah, despite the fact that he kind of came and went, I think, the bat reps have been pretty consistently entertaining for what they are. They're fine. I mean, again, it's a friendly game of Warhammer played between colleagues who hold themselves in, to a good standard and communicate well, and the games are fine. There's been a total of 30 bat reps, Phil.
That feels like quite a lot.
Yeah, with 40k being the most represented. So Kill Team and 40k are 16 bat reps, 5 Kill Team, 11 40k. Mm-hmm. Warcry has 3 bat reps, Age of Sigmar 7, Horus Heresy 2, Underworlds 1, and Necromunda 1. So they've done a total of...
a Necromunda one?
They've done a Necromunda one.
I might have to watch that one. I've not watched any of the Horus Heresy ones either, and I'd quite like to see what they've done with those.
I've not watched the Horus Heresy ones yet either, but I have to be honest, I think I will actually give that a watch because I think that's going to be worth a look. So there you go, 30 of them. I mean, runtime for them seem to be about 40 minutes, but they're so varied. I mean, some of them are like hours, some of them are like
well, yeah, but I mean,
shorter.
like most 40k battle reports would be a couple of hours. Like you kind of have to be if you're showing every single turn, right? Whereas some of the others would be a lot shorter. So
yeah, totally agree. But it's fine. I mean, again, the bat rep's pretty good. That's fine. And then lore-wise, they've got 25 Lore Master episodes. I still think Lore Master is terrible, but that's my perspective. I don't know whether you've got a different perspective on that.
I've always found them okay. They've been pretty good. I don't mind the fact that they're not 3 hours long like the YouTube Lore guys.
Oh, the YouTube Lore guys are some of the best.
But I don't want to listen to a 3-hour episode, with the exception of the Look Outside podcast on YouTube.
Yes.
But beyond that, I don't have time for a 3-hour episode, right? Like,
I'm too busy making my own to listen to it.
Exactly. Especially when it's a visual medium. Like, if it's just on in the background and you're listening to it, it's like, maybe it could be longer. But I prefer shorter content. So I think sort of bite-sized snippets, especially if it's aimed at, newer people, just to give you an overview, I think. Like, because they're like, what, half an hour long?
Not even that, no, they're really short. And the thing is 15. Like, but yeah, I mean, again, it varies. I didn't bother going through the process of sense checking all of their average lengths. I thought it was only really prevalent to the conversation around the animations.
Fair enough.
But the thing is, with the Lawmaster stuff, it's literally just Wade reads bios, right? Like, it's literally just like, he just picks up like the codex entries and goes, the Tau are a race of Tau, and they were created on Tau, which is a planet, don't you know? And it's like, oh god, it's literally, it's the words from the codex.
I don't think it is.
It is.
If it is,
have you watched it?
Yeah, I've not watched all of them, but I've watched a lot of them. It reads, right. I guess it read like one because it's giving you an overview, which is exactly what Codex does. But I don't think it will be word for word verbatim. If it is, I will say eat my hat, but I don't want to eat a hat and be wrong. I will be gobsmacked, and they're not. Therefore, I will totally dismiss Lawmasters as being relevant. How about that?
Well, fair. I've just stuck an episode on in the background. I've got an episode of Gazcult. This is 24 minutes, so yeah, these are... So
some of them are decent old length, I think. And I like the visuals, and it is actually, all proper, 40k artwork and stuff like that, whereas some of the YouTube ones, you don't get quite as professional images sometimes.
That's true. I think that's the thing. I think there's a certain kind of... I don't know whether it's how Wade delivers the information or how the videos are paced. It just doesn't, It's no Luton, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Well, I've never gotten into any of the...
I like it. I love a Luton.
Online law stuff.
I love a Luton. Wolf Lord Row, less keen on a Wolf Lord Row. I still enjoy his stuff from time to time. But, I like his intro, though. He's got this sort of soft, soothing kind of northern sort of accent where he goes like, he might not even be northern, I might be completely wrong here, but he does the thing where he's like, hello everyone, Row here, and then he goes on about how you should just read the Black Library novels and then basically waxes lyrical about stuff that's in them. But yeah, I quite like Wolf Lord Row. There's a plug for him, but not as much as Luton. Luton's top shelf Luton.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's fine. So Lawmaster, not my cup of tea, but it is a thing. Painting. How many painting tutorials do you think we get?
10.
Oh, no. It's the most numerous of anything.
No.
There are more painting tutorials than any other thing.
35.
Oh, you're so close. 38.
Yeah, because it's sort of like definitely at least every other week, if not a bit more. But still not weekly, right? To me, a painting video should be 52 at least. They should have done an episode a week quite easily.
Indeed. And then, just to say it, just for the thing, I think their painting tutorials, sorry, before I go off on that thing, I think their painting tutorials are actually of a pretty good quality. I don't think they are remarkably better than the stuff they've been doing on YouTube over the years, but they are good. I think the only thing that's sort of interesting about them is they're more willing to talk more openly about techniques that don't necessarily reside within their ecosystem. So they'll mention wet palettes and they'll talk about other kind of blending methodologies rather than just going, get this paint and put it there, get this paint and put it there, put it on our, palette using our pot with our brushes. That's very much the kind of YouTube vehicle, whereas in this they are a little bit more open to the suggestion that there are other painting techniques or methodologies, even if it is still quite rigid in some regards.
Yeah, I think they sort of started off strong by doing some of that thing. Like they talked about wet blending and glazing And then they sort of fell off the wagon and started talking about quite generic stuff like, oh, here's how you do white armor, or here's how you do like Idenef deepkin skin tones, or even worse, where they've just gone, here's a series on painting up the avatar of Cain. Admittedly, to an amazing high standard, but it's like
incredible standard.
That could have been. That's the sort of like when they do here's how to paint a particular model. That should be for free on the YouTube series because that's promoting that model. Likewise, they've done here's how you paint up a Legion Praetor. Again, even if it is to a higher standard than their usual stuff, it's like you could maybe just do that on the YouTubes. What I like about it is they're doing specific techniques, like here's how you do plasma glow or teeth, or things a bit more nebulous like color theory. Like I would much rather them start off and just do a whole series on like really practical, like but different techniques like wet blending, loaded brushes. I would say dry brushing, but wet brushing or overbrushing, I think it's called. So like kind of high level techniques, or even airbrushing, they could do a series on. And that to me is like Citadel kind of masterclass and what that should represent. I don't mind them where they do things like here's how you do gold armor or white armor. But there's loads of things like, to me, it's like the Darren Latham mini series that he produced on YouTube is still better than a lot of this stuff. Like in terms of, he did a bunch on doing different faces. He did like hazard stripes, and they haven't done one on hazard stripes. And to me, that's like, as a 40k player, like an essential thing you need to learn how to paint. So it's like, but I like that most of them are, I would say, pretty good. But yeah, the model specific ones I don't think is very appropriate for the masterclass, even though they're done to a much higher standard. If they were in addition, and it was like, if every week here's a core foundation technique that's, difficult to do all of those first of all, get them out of the way, so that's an amazing catalog that you've got. Then start doing here's how you do white armor, metallics, and then you can go on to, and once you kind of run out of those sorts of ideas, you can then do more model specific, but to like an heavy metal or golden demon standard or something. I mean, the officers need to go on team level, but they could do some stuff like that.
The Avatar series was done by a member of the heavy metal team.
Yes, that's really
so
high,
that wasn't
high
just
level.
Louise. It was and that was like really incredible sort of. And they get, to their credit, they go into certain things about like lighting and how you kind of change kind of the tones and how that then impacts the kind of visuals. So they did do a lot of cool stuff to try and expand beyond just the basic put the paint here.
Oh, that's good. I mean, I only watched a couple like early doors, and I haven't seen any of them since, because ultimately it's like I'll watch it when I need to learn how to do that thing. Yeah. The one that seems quite interesting is freehanding scripts. Like, that one sounds really cool.
Yeah.
That is something I do want to do. Yeah.
Like there are some useful stuff in there, right? I think the painting stuff, fine, but again, for most people's needs, and this is I suppose where it gets weird, is that it's almost like it's not quite as advanced as what you'll find on YouTube from some of the greatest painters in the world, right? Like when you go and you watch like the extraordinarily gifted, talented painters going through their methods, what you're seeing here doesn't necessarily massively kind of move the needle beyond that. I think actually really the work that Duncan used to do, or the YouTube variant of painting tutorials, is kind of what you want. You want a sort of like, I want to paint it good, not like, cabinet standard, like heavy metal good, but high gaming standard. So for me, it was always like the YouTube stuff was always extraordinarily good. I thought the work they did with those series,
and I mean they still do that as well.
They do,
and that is good that is in addition to this. So if this is meant to be a series that's like a more advanced version of what they put out on YouTube, it's like, okay, that's fine, and it sort of makes sense. And you've got model specific stuff in there, and that's the differentiation. But as you say, I think most people, for the average painter, it's like you want to learn to do a good tabletop standard, but you don't want to be spending a week painting out one model, because that's just not realistic. And maybe they need to straddle that a bit better. I think a lot of the techniques is quite good for that. But as you say, maybe the Avatar of Kane's a bit too much in the other direction. But I would quite happily have a bunch on really high-end techniques, and then a bunch on really just like good painting guides and guides to paint up models to a high standard that's slightly better than what they put out on YouTube.
Yeah. But yeah, painting good. And then last thing, the last original show they put out was the filler, Deep Strike.
The Deep Strike, that's it. I was thinking it was called Drop Pod, but no, that's
the talk show about the oh god, we're not actually going to be able to get these shows out weekly. Let's do some filler. And that was basically their solution. We got nothing
because they split up Angels of Death into two sort of chunks, and they had one at the end of each to talk about. Yeah. I watched those. I quite enjoyed them actually. I didn't mind.
But they reek of desperation, right? Like they literally just scramble to do something. You know.
Yes, I can see what you mean. It does have that vibe to it. Or to be honest, it might not be. It may generally be they've seen Netflix do these kind of like after shows, and they want to try and emulate that. But it's a bit hard to do a show about something that's 10 minutes long, which is why they've done halfway through. We do an episode and just talk about how great it was.
And these shows aren't clever enough, right? Like it plays its hands too early, and it's, there's no like we knew going into it that it was involving GSC, and we knew that stuff was going to kick off. It's not like, I don't know, like you didn't really build that kind of emotional resonance with it. It was good, but it wasn't like, anyway, it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, Game of Thrones level plot twists or anything like that, but it's still good. But yeah, I guess in those shows, all they can ever do is go, this show was great. They will never criticize it, even if it justly deserved it.
But it's not like
it is a marketing tool at the end of the day.
Yeah, but like in those other shows where people do, like I used to love The Walking Dead. So you watch the Walking Dead show after the thing where they'd unpack what had happened, and they get the actors on and they'd show behind the scenes, and they'd have all this kind of production.
I feel like they did have some of the people involved in producing it on, and more of that, more behind the scenes stuff. Like they could do like meet the guy who did Angels of Death, like the actual animator or interrogator or Hammer and Bolter, get those people on to talk about it. Like the Warhammer community articles sometimes do more of an in-depth job where they go, here's some like concept work that we created. So with Interrogator, they were like, we made an entire like 3D room that we designed for, the first episode. It's the first time you've seen the 40K shower/bathroom. This is what it looks like. And they've done all these intricate details. Like here's how the lock works on the door. And they kind of showed you all those drawings and, final renders in the Warhammer article. It's like, that would be quite a cool, interesting show in and of itself, because then you're seeing it actually animated as well, and like it will come to life. So there's definitely scope for doing extra sort of behind the scenes shows about the shows, especially when it comes to the animation and the art style and things like that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Anyway, so there you go. All told, Phil, once you add in animations, bat reps, lore, painting, and the fluffy Deep Strike, you are looking at a total video release of the first year of Warhammer Plus of 128 videos. 128 videos in the first year. That is 2.5 videos a week you are getting.
That sort of feels okay. It's like 2.5 a week is something, but it's not 2.5.
It certainly is
not. Well, the thing is, if it was 2.5 animations a week, we would be like, wow, that is good. Yeah, but it's not. Yeah. It's 0.7 of an animation a week or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's a decent amount of hours, I think, and the number sounds all right. It's more than half, which is probably my bar for that sort of thing.
Yeah, My theory is with it is, or my outlook on it is that it's not great, right? Like as a service in and of itself. If it wasn't for the miniature, the add-ons and all the extra bits, if this was just a service that was supposed to stand on its own 2 feet, I think if they were charging you 99p a month for it, just as this service, it'd be too much. It's not worth a quid. Like, it's pretty dire for what you're getting, right? Like, and the thing is like, and again, I know that it's different, but you compare this to what like Tabletop Tactics puts out in a year. You compare it to what, Tabletop Titans, the all these other like YouTubers that
Mini
are creating content.
Wargamer or
Mini
Ash
Wargamer
from Guerrilla Miniatures. They're all very consistent about putting out content, and but they're not putting out animations, right? They're doing
correct
battle reports and shows around that.
If you take the animations out of it, right? So say you take the animations out, you are essentially looking at 97 pieces of content. So to be fair, you can probably remove Deep Strike from that as well, because without the animation, there's nothing there that they would talk about. So in terms of just bat reps, lore and painting videos, 93. Right? 93.
Yeah, that's not a lot actually for the year. Because my minimum like benchmark of what I would like to see is basically one of everything a week. So one animation, one lore video, one battle report.
Agreed.
Ideally they could even do a couple of battle reports a week. It feels like they should be doing like, 140k or AOS plus maybe one of the smaller game ones. And that would be great. And it'd be interesting to see if they are just going to be consistent and do the same amount of release this next coming year, or if they're actually going to ramp it up and be like, okay, we've done a year, we can hire more people with the money that we got in from that year, we can build it to be something better. Because it sort of feels like half of the team doing, I mean, they must be just, because they also do the live streams as well a lot of the time as well. So it's like, it's not like they're just doing, Louise isn't just putting out one painting show every other week and that's her job. Like she's doing other stuff as well.
Yeah, of course.
Like. But it feels like they should be able to do more, like quite easily. Agree. And I'd like to see them do that. I don't want them to rest on their laurels and go, oh, last year was great. Let's just keep doing this slow pace and, the customers are fine with that. We've got them used to it now. We don't need to give them any more because we can suck them in for the year with a model, which is effectively what they're doing, right? That model is the incentive to buy up front for a year. Otherwise, no one would do it because ultimately it's not worth it.
I mean, look, here's the thing, right? To put it in context, I thought as an interesting point of comparison, I'd look at the first year of Warhammer community or Warhammer TV's like evolution, right? So you'll remember back in around 2014, they started doing the Duncan videos where he started doing painting, right? That was 2014 time. But that was really more of a kind of curiosity. It wasn't a very regular occurrence. Community hadn't really come into place. Rob, now with Honest Wargamer, hadn't really been put in place to start, creating content on the regular. That only really began late 2015 going into 2016. So I thought as a fair point of comparison, I would look at 2016's YouTube output of Warhammer TV as a point of comparison, right?
Okay. Although it wasn't so that a lot of their live streams, though.
Their live streams aren't included in this. This is just their YouTube channel,
right? Just
right?
YouTube, yeah. Because I think Rob mostly did the live streams more than the YouTube.
Well,
stuff.
he was quite heavily involved in a lot of the kind of production pieces and all the rest of it, right? And bear in mind as well, like in 2016, this was the last year of 7th edition, right? It was like the first year of, or like maybe the second year of Age of Sigmar. They had some Horus Heresy stuff, right? But these weren't like crazy big years for the company. This was, I think new Blood Bowl had just come out as well around.
2016, yeah, Blood Bowl. Yeah.
But at this point, it's just it's mostly 7th edition 40k. But yeah, they put out 141 videos on their YouTube channel that year, the greater majority of which being painting tutorials, right? Now, okay, fair enough. A large quantity of those painting tutorials lasted about a minute. That was kind of built around kind of bite-sized sort of things. But, you know, at one point it seemed like they were actually doing videos daily, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
It was like,
yeah. It did seem like they put out quite a lot.
Yeah, they were doing like tip of the day. Then they were doing like other videos to talk about sort of new releases and building that stuff up. Bear in mind, again, as I say, that they had a huge kind of program of things that they were doing with regards to their live streaming efforts and everything that kind of happened in that domain. So I think, you know, the year 2016 was a really interesting one in the sense that it was kind of the beginnings of them, you know, of them starting to roll out, you know, this kind of content schedule. And, you know, again, Duncan at that time, as far as I could assert, he was still part of the army painting team. He was still doing his day job. He was just doing daily tip videos and building stuff up. And I think, you know, it's just that thing. It's like you compare, basically what I'm trying to get to is that they've shown that from a painting perspective that they've been able to, you know, put out more or less 141 videos in the span of a flipping year, the greater majority of which being painting tutorials. They've managed to do, like, you know, the live streaming. They've managed to create all this stuff themselves. You know, and this year they've, you know, gotten 38, albeit longer format painting tutorials out. But, you know, I'm not, you know, it's like, it feels like they're really, like, you know, given the fact that it's now a premium service, it feels like they're really sort of slowing down versus what they've have themselves achieved in the past. And then also they don't compare to other free services. I mean, I'm not even comparing, like, you compare the battle report output of this service versus Tabletop Tactics premium service. Tabletop Tactics blow these guys away.
Oh yeah, so I'm
It's
pretty
like-
sure like Tabletop Tactics do a free video every other week, maybe?
Every week.
And maybe every week, yeah. And then they do at least 2 or 3 other videos every week, I think, or at least a couple, right? You know, to credit to Games Workshop, like, they do still do the YouTube painting tutorials.
They do.
And they've weirdly got probably more staff for that because they've got at least two new people, plus I presume Peachy's still with them as well doing it. So at least a team of 3 people doing those videos. So they've kind of actually grown that one just as much. And they're still doing those videos in addition to the Warhammer Plus stuff. But you're right, it totally doesn't compare with other people of similar sized teams, because the Warhammer team is probably, in terms of the non-animation side, a similar size to, say, the guys at Tabletop Tactics, and they're putting out a lot more videos. But I think probably the answer is the people at Warhammer Plus are doing other stuff as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I assume the social media stuff is run by different people. I don't know if it is the same group, because it probably was at one point. Plus, they're also doing the live streams, which are daily as well, or at least 4 out of the 5 weekdays, I think. So, you know, they're putting out that content as well, I assume. So you've got to sort of factor that in. But it almost feels like the live stream guys should almost be slightly separate from the, you know, it should be live streams and the presenters that do the reveal shows, right? That should be one team. Social media, a completely separate team. And the Warhammer Plus is a dedicated team putting out content. Obviously, they should all be closely related because they're all doing effectively a form of social media or content production.
Yeah, I think whatever way you cut it, right? You can look at a lot of points of comparison, but the fact remains that I think, you know, even when I just boil it down to bat reps, they've not really hit the right. I would have, as a minimum, expected 52 bat reps. You know, I'd expected a year of weekly bat reps.
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
That's a minimum, right? I would have. I'm fine with the painting side of things. I think that given the nature of what they're doing, fine. The lore videos, fine. But like the bat rep side of things, it's like the fact you didn't get 52. And by the way, when I think they should be 52 40k bat reps, 52 Age of Sigmar bat reps, and then a specialist game bat rep every week. That's what I think. I think you should have 3 of them.
Oh, yeah, that would be great, right?
Yeah,
that is that would probably really drive people if you had that plus a weekly one animation a week, which is that would really drive people. You wouldn't need the miniature then to sell people on the service. I think people would go, yeah, that's worth 50 quid. Like you get that many videos. Yeah, that would be good, I think.
Yeah. Look, I think we've done a pretty reasonable job of going over what this service entails and what they've done in the first year. I think
there's one thing we have missed out on. As we talked about the vault, we talked about the extra stuff. We haven't talked about the VIP access that you get going to Warhammer World, being a Warhammer Plus member, because that is part of Warhammer Plus.
What VIP? What you mean, the events, or do you mean?
Yeah, so when you go to the event, you get treated.
Oh right,
like
yeah.
VIP.
When you go to, oh yeah, you totally do. Like I remember last time they actually did do something. Fair play to them. They gave us dice. I mean, to be fair, that was nice because dice are expensive in Games Workshop.
They were nice. That was the best.
That is the best
given us.
So how many Warhammer World events have we been to since Warhammer Plus was a thing? 4? I want to say 4.
4. I can definitely remember getting gifts 3 times. There was at least one time when they said they wasn't going to do anything, which was the last one, and then they gave us...
No, the last one was the dice. The one before was they told us they're not doing anything.
But then didn't they give us something? Didn't they give us cards? Or was that the time they did?
Yes, they gave us... So they've given us cards on 2 occasions, and then they've given us... So we had those cards twice, and then we got dice.
Yes, I think the first time we went, they said, we don't know, we're still working it out, and didn't do anything, or... Again,
again, it's that thing, isn't it, I suppose, where it's like... Was it just something that someone in their community team thought, we could just chuck that into the perks because no one will call us on it. No one will remember.
But we do every time. Yeah. And this is the thing, they've been very inconsistent about it. Like I remember, so the first time we went, I'd emailed them in advance and said, are we getting anything? I'm a VIP member. You said as Warhammer Plus subscriber, I will get something. And they said, we're not currently planning to do anything. So I wasn't expecting anything. But then I think day 2, after other people maybe also said to them and asked, they basically gave out some free
secondary
objective cards. That was it. So they gave those to us. And I was like, that's cool. Felt totally last minute because I'd asked them in advance and they said no. And then the second time we went, I think we then got another deck of stratagem cards, secondary objectives, because they'd changed by that point. And then the last time we went, so maybe it was only been 3 times, we got a bunch of dice. And in between that, I think they had said, we're not doing it anymore. Yeah, that was at some point they said...
The third event I went to, they said...
that was it. I hadn't gone, but maybe you had. And they said, we stopped doing the perks for Warhammer Plus. So we then weren't expecting it, but then this time they sort of reinstigated it. So it feels like it's the one that they really flip-flop on, and they don't really know what they're doing. But the dice was really cool. And I've always said, just literally, you're at Warhammer World, there's tons of merch. Give us a mug, give us a T-shirt, give us a dice, just give us something off the shelves. And, that in itself, like those dice were worth 20 quid, right? Because they're expensive dice, right? That is just under half the value of our year's subscription. We all got purple Inquisition dice or Inquisitor Xenos dice. So, maybe you wouldn't want those dice or care about them. I personally really like them because I'm into Inquisitor stuff. But annoyingly, I lost 1 dice. So I've actually only got 19, which is a bit frustrating. But it was a cool gift. I thought that was really good. And they should just do stuff like that. And that, for people in the UK that do go to Warhammer World events, it makes it a great perk. Appreciate that isn't everyone, that loads of people in other countries don't get that perk at all. Except I guess if you're America and you go to those events that they put on there, you would get something similar as well.
Yeah, I think, again, the way they managed that whole process was, again, pretty poor because, again, clearly they had said they were doing something, and they every time they did it, it felt like they did it under duress, in the sense of,
it
like,
felt
the
like
events team.
Enough people asked them at the event that they were like, oh, right, okay, what can we find?
What we got?
And it always felt like that. It never felt like, on arrival, here you go, here's your goodie bag, even if it had one thing in. Like, it never felt like that. And that's, to me, when they say you're going to be treated like a VIP when you go to these events, that is what you would get. It was always something that was a bit of an afterthought.
Yeah, completely. And definitely not, again, a beautiful little microcosm for the whole thing that is the kind of Warhammer Plus experiment, which is that it just seems like, again, it's just very poorly implemented across all aspects of their business, and no one really seemed to actually have any kind of defined strategy behind it. At no point did anyone leading this initiative sit down the different stakeholders and be like, hey, events team, are you on board with this? Because we're offering it to people. We need to come up with a method for delivering this. We also need actually to be able to put something, and and then even to have the back and forth, because it's like, realistically, if you were doing that and you were thinking about it logically, what you might do is put within your Warhammer Plus app or the My Warhammer some kind of like QR code that they could scan at events to then authenticate your claim, and then also ensure that there's no repetition, i.e. you can't then, blag multiples of whatever.
Because what they do is they go, come to the desk and log in to your app in front of us to prove you're a member, and then we give you some dice, and then you tell us what team name you're in, and we tick that down so we know we can do 2 per team sort of thing, or for doubles events or singles for singles events, and that's how they do it. So you're right, they could integrate it more into the app. They could give you stuff like advance, what this would generally be worth it if you got like advanced pre-order on tickets, because tickets go like hotcakes. If you were paying extra to have a chance to jump the queue to buy tickets for stuff, that would be huge. Like, people would probably pay just for that, especially if you're a regular event goer.
Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think definitely it would be great if we were able to have something that just made it feel more, even if it was like, I don't know, you get like a different color lanyard, when they give you the lanyard or whatever it is.
I want a real gold lanyard.
Well, or they give you, like, even if it was like, oh, every event you go to in different quarters, there's different like pin badges or something, and then they give you like a special lanyard that you could decorate with your pins and showcase that you're a massive nerd.
Cool. Yeah, that would be really cool. Or like, a special lanyard that gives you free soft drinks and tea at the bar or something. That would be a huge perk. And tea and Coke is effectively free. It's just water, right? It's like, it's not costing them anything. But what it's costing them is the money that they could have made from us buying those drinks. And, I'll probably spend 10, 15 quid on drinks while I'm there at weekend. So they're losing.
And the rest, mate.
Well, yeah, I know. Well, every 6 cup of tea is free anyway because of the little stamps that you get.
That's true. Yeah. No, the event stuff has been. There definitely was a way they can do it better, and hopefully they will do. But for now, yeah. And it's also annoying as well, though, because don't get me wrong. When I was there and I asked them about, so what you giving me for being a Warhammer Plus subscriber, and I'm told by the events team, oh no, we don't do that anymore. It just creates a bad vibe. Even though I like the guy who I was talking to at the events team, I talk to him every now and again. He's a nice guy. I forget his name, but he's a nice dude. But I just, but I don't like being made to feel like, that I'm being like mugged off. It's like that thing where you say to him like, oh, can I please have the thing that you've said?
Please, sir, can I have it?
And they're very much like, no, we're not doing that. And I'm like, oh, I feel small and insignificant.
What was hilarious, because I remember this now, like that had happened to you, and then it was literally like that night or something. an article about the ITC comes up on Warhammer Community where they say, oh, and Warhammer Plus people still get their great bonuses for coming to our events. And we're like, no, you literally just got told you're not doing it anymore. But then Warhammer Community is saying the complete opposite. And it's like, that's not on. Which is, I think, one of the reasons why they've then flip-flopped on that idea and started giving people the free stuff again, because like they've literally just told us they're doing it.
Yeah. So there you go. There you are. So as the year has progressed in terms of Warhammer Plus, I got, what did I get? I got 128 pieces of original content, some better than others. I got a pack of dice for attending an event. I got 2 sets of secondary cards for attending 2 separate events. I got mugged off at one event for asking the question. I received a £10 voucher, a little pin for Angels of Death.
Enamel pin badge,
and this lovely orc. So, all things said and done, I got something close to...
Oh, plus your app subscriptions as well.
That's my app subscription, lest I forget. I got something close to what I kind of feel like represented parity, as it were. I wouldn't call it value. I would say I got, I got something that feels to me to be on point, in the sense that it is the model, the £10 voucher, the dice, the pin. I think those things, in terms of their collective value, the dice are what, 20 quid? 23 quid?
Here's the thing.
Something like that.
It is all value for money, but in the Games Workshop price ecosystem. So if it was anybody but Games Workshop, you'd probably go, not value for money. Netflix gets so much more content for the price, right? But for all the stuff that Games Workshop give you at the price they would sell it at, then yes, you do get at least 50 quid's worth of stuff. And that's it.
Yeah, that's it, basically. But bear in mind, though, at the price of admission of going to multiple events as well, though, right? In order to if I hadn't have gone to an event
to get your dice,
to get my dice, then this would have been negative equity. The only reason that they level out is because they gave me a tenner, they gave me a 20 quid pack of dice, and they gave me a 20 quid model.
Well, the orc, let's say, is 20 quid.
Yeah.
The 10 quid vouchers, that's 30 quid.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Your app subscription on itself would be worth 20 quid, even though you don't like it. It is included.
I feel like the app's worth. I feel like the app is more or less worthless. I'd say the app is moot, because I know you think
I
get nothing out of that.
It costs money to have.
Not based on how I use it, because I put all my book tokens into it, and then I use it as a reference thing for books that I own and bought. It's very rare that I've had to look up anything that I don't already own, right? So
yeah, do you know what? I keep forgetting that, because I do the same thing. So it's like, isn't it like you get quick search or something? Like,
no, all of that functionality is there when if you've just got the books in there. The only thing you don't get is the ability to use Army List Builder, which I wouldn't use anyway, because Battlescribe is better and free.
Yeah.
So the 40k app is a nothing. The animations are okay, but they haven't really provided me with very much in the way of entertainment. Yeah. They're good, but not great. Like I'm saying, the only reason this, to me, has achieved, equilibrium is because I went to a couple of events where they were not kind enough. Why should I even say kind enough? Where they honoured their contractual obligation to me, and gave me what I purchased. I had
in terms of a freebie, the dice were the best ones out of a lot. The secondary cards, especially when one of the lots of secondary cards were already in a white dwarf, so it was like, I've just got much larger, more impractical versions of stuff that already exists, and the white dwarf versions had nice rounded corners, whereas the ones at Warhammer World were like really stabby, pointy cornered ones, which were pretty lethal. So yeah, I mean, overall though, I think they are. It's been an interesting ride. I've enjoyed the animations. Yeah, I'll probably need to do another sit down and watch them, because I do tend to sort of build up a little backlog and just watch them all in one go. It's not a service I will use every week, and that's what it's meant to be and intended to be. And it doesn't draw me in every week, and I kind of often forget that I've even got it. And then it was only when something like Interrogators recently popped up on Warhammer Community that I'm like, oh yes, it's there. I should go watch those episodes.
Yeah. That's the thing. Had I not attended a couple of events, it would be totally negative equity. But because I'd attended a couple of events, it you know. But then I suppose, you know, what value do I put on the sense of betrayal and loss that was you know, thrust upon me when I was told to go away and that they didn't do a thing that I bought into. You know, that hurt, man. Like, I'm not, you know, I know this sounds ridiculous, but you know, you feel like, you know, a bit of a pillock when you turn around to these guys and they basically say, we don't care, go away. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because I remember when I asked about, like, oh, are you doing the individual model categories for the painting in the cabinets? And they were like, no, we've stopped them because of COVID rules, even though everyone gathers around the cabinet anyway the next day for the best armies. So I was a bit like, oh, I really enjoyed that, and I painted up a model for it. Oh, okay, I'll just go.
So you promoted in your rules pack that you were doing it, but you just chose to remove it. Like, cheers.
Yeah. You know, so Games Workshop has done one good thing recently. So then now, if you buy,
they've done lots of good things. Heresy is great.
Well, no, I mean, for year 2 of Warhammer Plus, what's really cool is if you are a annual subscriber, you don't have to wait an entire year to get your model. We're going to get our models up front, and I do think that's a real positive. And that was actually one of the real negatives of the last year, because it just felt like, oh, you got to wait ages. I've already paid up front. You've got my money for a whole year, so just give me my thing now that I'm meant to get. And waiting for a year felt just a bit, I don't know, bit of a downer. But getting a double whammy basically of the assassin, and now one of these new models in the next month or so, I guess we'll be getting that as well if we're renewing. That would be cool, and I like that they're doing it up front. I think that's a good incentive to get people to buy into the annual subscription method. Yeah, and hopefully that is fair. A nice sea change of, you know, maybe we will, fingers crossed, see more episodes a week and stuff like that. I'm not holding out, but it'd be nice if they did.
I don't know. I don't know where I say. I think I am resubscribing just through. I don't know why I am though. I literally, it's such a waste of money because I'm not even going to use the models. This orc is never going to get built. As cool as that Chaos Space Marine is, I'm never going to use it. So maybe I should just cancel it. I need somewhere. I need to draw a line somewhere.
Well, exactly. And I said this pretty much at the start of last year when we talked about Warhammer Plus, or like the first month into it. It's like, if you are strapped for cash and you want to watch some animations, but you don't feel like you can afford the annual subscription, I said it then, say it now, wait for the year. So a year is up. If you've not watched any of these animations, subscribe for 1 month, watch all the episodes you like, get a year's worth of content for a $5.
Yeah.
And, you know, don't subscribe for any longer than that. Just do 1 month only, watch it, see if you like it, or just enjoy it for what it is, and then do the same thing next year for that 1 month. You
can watch all of their animation content in less than an average working day.
Yeah, not take a day off. On your weekend, just sit down, watch all the animations.
Yeah.
Like, as you said, like, Angels of Death is a movie, right? So just treat it like a movie, watch them all in one go. Great. And you will, I hope you enjoy it. I think most people would enjoy it. And I'd say the animations overall are really good quality. And
I agree.
Worth it. And if you haven't ever seen them, I would, it's definitely worth subscribing for 1 month to watch them all that currently exists. Totally.
I'll tell you what, the only thing now that's keeping me in it is the sense of FOMO of, because I will go to a lot of Warhammer World events still. I'm going to be going to one next month. And it's like...
oh, yeah, you want your free... whatever your freebie is there.
Maybe they've upped their game. What happens when I turn up? But then I suppose here's the thing, though, right? With the way
we could cheat the system. If I still subscribed, you could use my login details.
That's true. Or here's the
You
thing.
could do.
Here's the thing, right? If I turn up and they go, hey, Warhammer Plus subscribers, there's a really cool thing we're giving you this weekend if you're on Warhammer Plus. And it's like, I don't know, like a limited mini.
You could literally just sign up then and there.
Yeah, I just go, all right, I'll pay the £4 or whatever it is, £5 for the month, just so as I can get that free thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because I mean, even though I got the dice, I mean, you said you're missing them. You can have mine, mate. They're sat doing it in the sealed, doing nothing.
You are a gentleman.
Well, there you go. You see, that's me. But yeah, I think I'm cancelling. Actually talking about it's been really cathartic. I think it's actually been good to go through the process because I'm cancelling. I'm not. No.
I think I'm cancelling my White Dwarf, but I'm gonna keep.
You're gonna stay. You're gonna.
With White Dwarf, it's like I don't feel like you really get much, but then you get a bunch of freebie bits like throughout the year. And the thing I like about White Dwarf is when they do like the index 40k rules, and they're some of my favorite episodes to talk about on the podcast. So it feels like I should subscribe just for those, but maybe I just need to pick up those individual issues rather than subscribe for the whole year. For the animations, I think I'm quite happy to keep my subscription. I think I feel like is it worth it? I'm not fussed about the models, so actually there's no real incentive for me to do it for the year, but I'm quite happy to give them my money and basically be like, hopefully this is paying a poor animator some lunch money. It's not. It's just going to the stocks and shareholders, but
Yeah, I think this is my thing. I feel like I have to draw a line somewhere. I give them a lot of support. I'll tell you what, I've just cancelled. That's one of the easiest subscriptions to cancel I've ever done.
Well, you've done it. I thought we were doing it live on air, and you just click on cancel my subscription. And then it says, "Are you sure you want to cancel? If you cancel now, you'll miss out on exclusive free miniature. Mention all the other great benefits. Warhammer Plus." I'm sure. Well, you can always resubscribe. That's the thing.
Yeah. Although, let me check my order history. Let me just check that they've not already billed me.
That will be well, because if you have, it doesn't make a difference because you'd have paid up front for the year.
Yeah. I wonder where.
Well, I suspect there's still one more month before it is actually the end, because I think we were in the category where if you subscribed for the year, you got the model 8 months instead of 10 months instead of 12 months. But if you were already a Warhammer app subscriber, you got 8 months into your subscription rather than 12 months. So I suspect we are coming up to maybe, because I've had that model for a month now, so it's probably, I think there's still probably a month to go, or the end of the month. So I imagine September which is quite soon, the start of when probably it actually started. So we're not quite up to a whole year yet for your subscription.
Yeah, so I did Warhammer Plus annual on the 25th of August is when I did it last year.
A few days. So we actually are coming. So we're correct. We by the time the episode comes out, it would have been a year of Warhammer. But I have
cancelled now. I just think I have to draw a line somewhere. I can't keep just giving these guys money for nothing. It's
I can see people being critical and saying this isn't value for money, because that is subjective to everyone, right? So when I first was signing up to Warhammer Plus, I was like, or when they first talked about it, I didn't have a decent job, so I was a bit like, $5 a month is a lot for someone not earning any money. So I can understand being in that position and going, I just can't afford it. Whereas now I feel it's fine. I'm happy to pay for that money, and I'll keep it going, I think.
Yeah, I get that. I just think the thing is, I support so much of the stuff they do, And like, I just know, the thing is, right, like, closing thoughts on the whole thing, right? Whether I think it's worth it or not is moot, because it isn't worth it to me. Because here's the thing, right? Hammer and Bolter, watch maybe 5-6 episodes of it. Interrogate, I've not watched any of it. Exodite, I watched the first episode for about 5 minutes and went,
so I guess that's the problem. If you've not, because if you haven't been watching all the animations, then you're definitely not getting the value of
Angels of Death. I watched the first episode and went, yeah, whatever, and then like stopped.
Have you not watched any of the? Not watched
hardly any.
Oh.
Actually, no, I watched 3 episodes or something.
Okay,
but even then, I was like somewhere between 1 and 3. But I haven't watched it all, and I was underwhelmed. Bat Reps, I've watched maybe half of 2. But I will watch the Heresy one just because I think that'd be interesting.
Well, we'll get in there quick because you've just unsubscribed.
Exactly. Law, I watched 1 episode of, and I thought it was rubbish and haven't really watched any more. And Paint, I never have time to paint stuff as it is, so I've hardly watched any of it.
The painting ones are the ones I've watched for the least, because it feels like it's a reactive thing that you watch when you need to learn the technique rather than just watch for the sake of watching.
Yeah. And then I haven't watched any of the Deep Strike talkie things.
They were all right. They were all right. But then no point watching them, because it just feels like you just don't watch them. And either that's because it's not engaging enough, or because you're not liking the shows, right? In which case for you, it's not value for money. Whereas I've watched 90% of the animations, right? I've just not caught up on the last few Hammer and Bolter and the Interrogator episodes, but I will watch them all for sure.
And that's the thing. I don't use the Vault and the 40k app. I own all the books, so like,
yeah. If the app becomes, you are a subscriber to the app, you get unlock all the content on that app, then it almost makes the Warhammer Plus subscription a no-brainer, and people will pay 50 quid a year just for all of that content on the app, right? And if then that builder was as good as Battlescribe and not as buggy, then that would just makes it such a better proposition, right? That it becomes almost like a no-brainer for people to sign up to.
They can totally win me back, but right now I just, being pragmatic about it. I'm out.
Fair enough. Yeah.
There you go. That was a good chat. There you go, guys. That was us talking about Warhammer Plus. Phil, I mean, what's your final thoughts on it? I apologise if I hadn't really given you a chance to summarise.
I don't know. I thought I did.
I thought you did as well, actually. I'm just...
overall, I think for me, I'm happy with it. I don't think it was as good a content as... I thought the content was good, but there wasn't enough of it, right? And I'm hoping that next year they ramp up the amount of episodes. As we said, if we get 1 episode of each per week, I think that is what it should be and what people expect. And that's what I want. And if it doesn't achieve that next year, then I could sort of start going, okay, right, they're not willing to deliver. But I'm willing to give it another shot for a year, because I have enjoyed the animations that they put out so far.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to give it a go.
Here's the thing: they can definitely win me back, but I'm not interested right now. It's I'm glad that we've gone through it, and I actually had a proper kind of opportunity to evaluate. So there we go. Hopefully, you, the listener, has done the same.
Well, let us know in the comments if you've subscribed, resubscribed, or cancelled, or just never subscribed and never intend to.
Oh, indeed. Awesome. All right. Well, there you go. Warhammer Plus, the year in review, transitional noise. So a couple of things, Phil. First of all, I'm ill, which I wasn't when we recorded the bulk of us whinging about Warhammer Plus, although I don't know whether we whinged. I can't even remember. I suppose it really depends on how I edit it. But I wasn't when we did that bit, but I am now. And the world of Warhammer... see, look, there's a snottiness there. It sort of adds a weirdness to it. The world of Warhammer as we knew it, Phil, almost imploded on itself. How bizarre, how, divine of us, as we were talking about the importance of Battlescribe during the proceedings of the Warhammer Plus conversation. The Battlescribe left the pages of Apple app stores around the world. That was pretty monumental, wasn't it?
A coincidence, if there ever was one. Yes. It doesn't mean we can talk about it now, though, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I think what's interesting to me, right? Obviously, I don't want to sound ridiculous and overstate this, but I legitimately, actually, sincerely believe that a world of Warhammer without Battlescribe would be a much less engaged 40k or games Warhammer audience. I think Battlescribe in so many ways has become such a kind of intrinsic part of our Games Workshop Warhammer experience that a world without it is significantly compromised. Is that a crazy thing to say?
And do you know what? I think I agree with you, because I think when, for example, a new edition comes around or a new codex comes around, you've got that lag of at least a couple of weeks to a month before Battlescribe updates with the new stuff, and then you kind of left puzzling what to do. I know you use Excel sometimes, and I might just do pen and paper and actually, go through the book. And obviously that's what I did as a kid, and it was fine then, and it's fine now to an extent, because I know people still do that method, but it's not anywhere near as easy or as streamlined. And I know. Well, let's start off with describing what Battlescribe is for people that weirdly might not actually have ever used it. They might be a new listener. They might be new to 40k. It's basically a third-party app for building your army. It works not just for 40k, but for a dozen other systems, which is also what this is a negative on. So, X-Wing, even other not 40k Games Workshop games, so Blood Bowl, More Time, going back to super old games, Necromunda for like gang management and stuff. It does all of that stuff, which is quite
even does older editions, right? You can still backdate. Yeah. I mean, I've got 7th edition 40k still on mine.
Yeah, exactly. So it does all of those things. Basically, people are always like, how was it able to get away with it? Because, surely it has Games Workshop IP on it. And basically, it's a bit like how, LimeWire used to work. LimeWire wasn't pirating anything, but people were putting stuff on there. And it's slightly more nuanced than that, but basically, it is just a shell for generating rosters. And then there are people that manage the data, which upload it to have the Warhammer 40k sort of system, and then off of that, other people add on individual army rosters that then allows you to actually build your army roster from, which is why it's so universally useful. It is a community project in terms of updating those files. I've submitted bugs when I've seen them before, especially for like the Krieg roster when that was its own separate thing. So which is one of the reasons why it's so good and relatively, I will say, accurate, because sometimes it's a bit buggy, but then other people will submit those bugs and then someone will come along and fix it. Whereas that can happen with a Games Workshop app, but it's less transparent in terms of when those get fixed or they just don't get fixed. And I know a lot of people have a real issue around creating some of the aspects to the Battlescribe. So if you need to do multiple detachments, and the way you add like a detachment within a detachment is a bit funky. And there are some features that you just can't use. Like there's no ability to like move a unit from one detachment to another or change a detachment into a different type of detachment. Like if you go, I've built a battalion, but I actually really want it to be a vanguard. The only thing you can do is literally delete it and all the units inside it and then recreate it all from scratch. So there are some things that could be improved. And then the reason why we're talking about it today is basically the app is classed as abandoned, where basically the author of the game hasn't updated it in over 2 years. Is it 3 years? Something like that?
Well, no. So, I mean, that was the story, but it's moved on. The guy has gone active on Twitter.
Oh.
Yeah, so did you not know this?
No, as far as I was aware, he
okay.
had, so as far as I was aware, he hadn't updated it at all in the last few years. Eventually, that gets
And that is
classified by Apple and eventually, apparently, Android as abandonware, and then it gets removed from their shops, especially after systems update. They basically go, oh, stuff that was compatible with older editions of the iOS, for example, will have to be updated if they want to be compatible with the newer stuff. Happens all the time. Because I remember when 9th edition first came out and we had the Warhammer app, the new app, I couldn't actually run it on my older phone because my old phone couldn't cope with the newer apps designed for newer operating systems. So eventually I had to get a new phone, basically. So yeah, where's it moved on to now?
So as of the day of recording, Thursday, the 25th of August, Battlescribe's Twitter profile has posted, "This is embarrassing. Apparently, an expired credit card caused my iOS developer account to go down for a bit, meaning the app couldn't be reached in the App Store. It should be back up and running now, /soon. So what they've essentially said, somehow for the last 3 years or whatever it's been since they updated it last, or 2 years, whatever it was, they've essentially not noticed and not done anything about it for that long a period of time. And now that it's finally been removed from the storefront, obviously enough people have been making enough noise.
So he's like, oh,
I may have mucked up here. And it's just gone, whoopsie-doo.
Well,
it's, yeah.
Well, I guess also the thing is that let's say there's probably some monetary incentive for him as well, because so it's free, but there is a pro version which just removes.
I support
ads,
it all the time.
Which I used to. I don't think the current version, because I think you do it on an annual subscription. I think my current one isn't. And he's obviously cashing in on all that money for doing no extra development. So, maybe it's so popular he just gets to sit back on his yacht in the Cayman Islands or something, and he's just loving his life. And now he's all of a sudden gone, oh, all of this money I'm earning is going to disappear if no one can actually download my app.
Indeed.
I mean, it's probably not that excessive. Maybe it's just a nice little, slush fund for his beers when he goes out on a Friday night. Who knows how much it is?
Exactly. Well, I've contributed to the project every year for the last 5 years or something.
And it's is it like $1.99 or something? It's not
like $1.99. Yeah, I think I do the most premium version, which means I have access to desktop and app.
Oh, okay.
But I never use desktop, but it's nice to have it, I guess. Yeah, so there's a couple of tweets on there. So the first one was whoopsie-doo, my bad. And then the next one, he didn't say whoopsie-doo. I'm just sort of phrasing it.
I wish he did.
Yeah, I know, he could have done. He went with whelp, is what he said, first of all.
Okay.
But follow up with, in other news, things have been quiet around here for a bit, but don't worry. One, he is alive. I mean, that's good news. I am alive. Battlescribe is alive. I just needed to take some personal time. I mean, that's a significant amount of personal time.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, look, at the end of the day, if that's as long as they needed, fair play to them. Expect maintenance releases on all platforms soon to keep things ticking over.
Oh, that's good.
But there's not all been downtime over here. I have been experimenting with researching new technologies to ensure Battlescribe is future-proofed. This is work that has been sorely needed for a long time. It is a huge job, and there is still a lot to do. P.S. I suck at social media. Apologies for any confusion about the future of Battlescribe recently. I mean, now here's the thing, right? Obviously, well done on acknowledging it, and thank you for the apology. But, there wasn't very much confusion about it.
Because it happened.
Sorry, I managed to mute myself by tapping the spacebar there. Yeah, it is dead. It went. And, obviously now it's returned. And that's fantastic. But yeah, no, I mean, there's being concerned about the future, or rather, the statement of apologies for any confusion. There wasn't any confusion. We knew what was happening. It was going. until obviously you miraculously return.
Yeah, I
come back again.
It's sort of interesting timing that he's then like, oh no, I am actually. I mean, he uses the word maintenance, right? So that is probably I'm just updating it to be compatible with future editions of like iOS and Android releases. That doesn't mean he's going to necessarily add in more features or fix things. Not something he's fixing, but he's not adding in because it's a pretty stable platform. But maybe he's also talking about, I want to develop it in a way, and maybe he will want to do something more with it. If he needs a UX UI designer, he can look me up.
There you go. You should reach out. I can't imagine. Well, maybe he does listen to this podcast. Who knows? But I imagine you could probably extend the olive branch on that one, buddy.
Maybe. But I'm a bit disappointed. I was hoping there would be some tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. I liked the idea that Games Workshop had slipped him some money to let it quietly die, and he goes rumors, AWOL.
I had heard rumors that he attended. He was one of the Horus Heresy event attendees. I'd heard that on the grapevine. So yeah, no, those conspiracy theories were cooking. But no, as it turns out, he's just a bit of a plum, and
just a bit lazy, I guess. Like,
just a bit like the best of us, you know. I mean, yeah, whoops. But yeah, obviously yet to be resolved. Neither you or I. Or do you own an Apple phone?
Yeah, I've got an Apple phone. Yeah.
Oh, fine. Well, maybe you can verify between now and when we record the intro whether or not it's back.
I don't think it will be back for a few days. It probably takes a while to sort itself out. But it is good because I was, as an iOS user, a bit concerned. Not that I was going to delete the app anytime soon, but to go, where would I be without it? Is a bit of a dark place to go. The dark times of pen and paper, or I guess some other app would probably get developed and come in its place.
So up until about a week ago, the Heresy support on Battlescribe was good but not complete. And it's still not complete. It's still missing a great deal of, stuff, because obviously a whole new edition with whole new armies came, and all 18 new armies and
plus all the legend stuff as well.
Yeah. So all that came along. So it's taken them, obviously, the team that are working on that a considerable amount of time to get to it. But, obviously the passion and enthusiasm for Heresy is there. People are list building. People are constructing armies. People are obviously getting, immersed. But definitely, I've heard from so many people, it's like, can't wait till Battlescribe sorts it out so as I can start to have that reference material, to have that kind of central resource where I can start building my armies and start theory crafting, how I'm going to actually compose my lists, and ultimately having that place where, because obviously the books for Heresy rules are kind of scattered to the wind, and
they're also massive books as well that you don't really want to take with you. Like having a digital version would be a lot handier. I mean, and this is like, imagine if Games Workshop had released a Horus Heresy app exactly like the 40k one and exactly like the AOS one, where it's a bit buggy in places, but all the info's there, and you can list build. And let's assume that it was for the most part working, because the 40k one, it does work, but there are like weird nuances where certain combos just don't work or throw a bit of a wobbly when it comes to validating your army list. But imagine Horus Heresy players having that straight away. That could have drawn them to that app and the Warhammer Plus subscription over Battlescribe, because it's like, do you really want to wait 2 or 3 months for Battlescribe to have everything on it, or do you want to go on Warhammer Plus for a $5 a month and have everything there straight away? That could have been a real coup for Games Workshop if they had done that. Obviously, they haven't, but they could have. They could have, is what I'm saying.
They very much could have. They didn't, and more's the pity. But I think, this is the thing, though. Like, being in a place where we now have Battlescribe for Heresy almost fully fledged, right? It's not there yet, but it's very close. And obviously, if any of you out there are contributing to Battlescribe and creating those incredible resources for the good of the community. Thank you very much. They're incredible. I likely don't do enough to support that particular kind of effort because I think the work that those guys do is exceptional.
For sure. I mean, if you think about it, the tournament scene is propped up by Battlescribe because the RTC app, which has list submissions built into it, and all of the whole stat centers and the stuff that they do is all based around list submissions, predominantly using the Battlescribe sort of output format that it does for its list building. And without that, you don't have any of the stats and analysis from tournaments and events, which even Games Workshop use. And also without that, it sort of makes managing a tournament a lot more difficult, and also validating everyone's army lists when it comes to just looking at attendees at a tournament and checking over your opponent's army list and stuff. If you didn't have Battlescribe to do all that, and it was like, oh, I photocopied a handwritten piece of paper in someone's, doctor's scribbling, my handwriting's pretty awful. I can barely read it, let alone someone else. So, just that sort of improvement of the game is a good quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think, like going back to my kind of opening statements on the topic, I think had it been that we were heading into a world without Battlescribe as a community, I don't feel like it's an overstatement to suggest that the impact on the health of the game would be significantly compromised. I think Battlescribe, in a way, has kind of enabled people to, express ideas and theory craft and come up with stuff that they want to kind of explore or expand their collections with. I think there's so many times that like you're having a fun conversation with your mates about army lists and you're talking about like concepts. I mean, just the other day I was over in Poole playing a game against my mate Ben, who appeared as a guest on the podcast Talking Competitive the other day. And I was explaining to him about all the things that are good about Lehman Russes. I was like, to be honest with you, at the moment, I was like, I don't understand why no one's really rocking like Lehman Russ armies, because I think they're amazing. Because obviously, Toughness 8, 2-up armor save, Armor of Contempt, OBSEC. It's like, these guys are crazy. I know, obviously, you've gone the distance with Lehman Russes, right? So you might have a more nuanced opinion, but my opinion was very much, I think there's some play in them. Anyway, I was sort of enthusiastically talking about Lehman Russes to Ben, and immediately Battlescribe starts crafting lists, looks at how many of them he can spam in like a competitive army list, and starts going, oh, I can get like 8 of them and then 2 commanders and da-da-da-da-da. And you're like, yeah, all right, cool. And then you start like going through the motions of like what you can build. And I don't think it actually was 8 of them in the end. I think it was like 7 or something, because I think they were like 150, 160 each.
Well, yeah, like 150 base, but normally a couple points more for, you want the tank commander versions more like 175, 180, I think. And
yeah. And demolishers are the things you probably want.
Yeah, although they're cheap. They're like, I think they're like 5 points extra or something. Whereas, the crappy auto cannons are like 15 points more or something ridiculous. It's like, they're not balanced at all. And this is, we've said it about the balanced data sheets, data slate. Doesn't fix any internal balance. It just fixes the broad sweeping problems. And even when they do the points updates, they've never once really adjusted or even touched the guard points at all throughout this entire edition. And it's like, Demolishers, the busted best turret option for Lehman Russ is still one of the cheapest and has been all game, which is just mad.
But regardless of those nuances, though, the fact that we were having that conversation and it immediately triggers him to break out Battlescribe and start thinking about it, and he started sending me lists that evening. He was like, oh, I'm trying out with this, or I'm trying like these, because he got excited by it, and he was like, yeah, actually, he starts like concocting ideas around how a Lehman Russ army could look. Now, if I was having that conversation with him in a non-Battlescribe world, acknowledging obviously that Games Workshop do offer us a paid alternative, but if I was having that conversation with him in a non-Battlescribe world, he'd be like, Oh yeah, that sounds cool. I'll look into that later. And never.
Let me
about
go get my codex out and
which he probably doesn't own.
Look at the actual numbers and stuff. I mean, as a counterpoint, and now I do think it's very good, but as a counterpoint, do you feel like having something like Battlescribe where you can do exactly what you said? You can basically rapidly like develop prototype armies, sort of develop them, basically gets you to the point where you almost like optimize your army as quick as possible, which for some people would say is a good thing, but ultimately does this create the net listing world that we're now in, where people will go on Battlescribe, quickly create a list, go, yeah, this is the best one, tell everyone else, or go to a tournament with it, and then ultimately everyone is in agreement, like, this is the only way to run this army because it's the best one, and I've worked it out already because of Battlescribe. Whereas if you had a pen and paper approach, it'd be way harder to do that, and admittedly the internet probably would still, let's say, net list stuff because it's the internet, but maybe people would be a bit more wedded to, this is my idea and I'm going to then go off with it, and it's a lot harder to change your list, so you'd be almost more encouraged to do like this is my 2,000 points and I'm sticking with it.
Well, so here's my perspective on it. People with a competitive mindset who want to build competitive lists will almost certainly create competitive lists with Battlescribe, and they will do it quickly and they will do it that way. People who are otherwise inclined towards creating more thematic lists have the same functionality. You could just be excited about, I really like this theme. For example, one of the projects that I started during lockdown, which I didn't finish, like a great many lockdown projects, was my classic 90s Elder Army. I was like, this is the Elder Army that my, 13-year-old self, 12-year-old self would have been very excited to own. It was every Phoenix Lord, an Avatar, and one of each Aspect Warrior. And, I sat on Battlescribe and I poured over the details and I was like, right, how do I build this as a legal list that I can run in 8th edition as it was at the time? And then how do I kind of then transplant that into 9th edition? I can tell you for nothing, it was a great deal more difficult to put it into 9th edition just because of the way the game is structured. And good God, if I were trying to run it as a 9th edition army using the current, Grand Tournament version, the Nephilim, I don't think I can run this list at all anymore. But the point is like, I sat down and I came up with a thematic army and built around, building an army not optimized, but of like, can I get away with this? Can I do something as silly as taking 7 HQ choices and a bunch of elites? And it's like, oh yeah, I can. And then I bought all the stuff, because that's the other thing, right? I think it's that momentum. And I take. Well, we should probably address the point you made, which is, does it fuel that competitive debate? Yeah, it does, but I don't necessarily think that's a negative, because I think that drives the conversation, and then eventually someone is compelled to make it. It's like people, it's that sort of secular. It's that basically that kind of community driven commerce and communication that creates the hobby, right?
Yeah, and I sort of think if there were any negatives by sort of that app in terms of the ease in which you can make your army competitive, and as you rightly say, if you're competitive minded, you're going to do that anyway via any means possible. But there's so many more advantages to, and I'm just going to use Battlescribe as a broad term, but any kind of army list builder, whether that's Games Workshop or whatever.
Army Bister.
An Army Bister, yeah.
That's one. Beautiful gravy.
That's one for a t-shirt, obviously. So any negatives that it has in that respect is, I think, really offset by the benefits of like the ease of access for like, getting into a game of 40k, learning how to build armies. I think one of the huge things that it does that we haven't really talked about is the validation. Like if you were doing a pen and paper list, and let's say we'd talk about tournaments again, because that's where it would happen the most. You're going to an event and you've just handwritten a list. How many times are people going to have gotten that list wrong, or taken the wrong combo of like stratagems and relics and given it to units that they couldn't have done because they just got it wrong by mistake? And Whereas at least with Battlescribe, it's like it will flag that up 95% of the time, saying, actually, you're trying to do something and it's incorrect. Fix it. And I think that's actually a huge benefit to making sure that people are playing on a level playing field, or as much as one is possible within 40k. And especially when it comes to the tournament scene, basically.
Yeah, I absolutely. Oh, flipping it. Big old moth's just come into my house. Moth! I'm sure I'll be all right until it flies into my eye and creates a whole thing. Anyway, yeah. It's on my head.
I see it. Yeah,
you see it. You see it flying around. Flipping moth. Anyway, to answer your question. Sorry, Phil. What was the question? The moth is just completely distracted.
It wasn't. It was more of a statement of the app validation is actually really important, and it's kind of that will really offset any of the negatives, I think.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. It helps remove mistakes, and Lord knows we make enough of those even with Battlescribe, right? So I think, yeah, like, you know, it's very prevalent that you make mistakes. But that definitely goes away towards alleviating those, which is tremendous. You know, that's definitely
it's not to say Battlescribe is perfect. There's definitely been times when someone online will say, "Oh, I can do this," and I'm like, "You can't," and they're like, "But Battlescribe says I can," and it's like, "Yes," because either Battlescribe is wrong, the person doing the rosters interpreted the rule incorrectly, or it just doesn't validate that thing that you're trying to do, but the rule book still says you can't. Sometimes those elements do creep in. Very rare, but they have happened over the years.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, sometimes there's discrepancies, right? So like maybe points have been updated and Battlescribe has, you know, made a mistake and, you know, something that would be 5 points is listed as, you know, 10 or whatever.
Yeah,
like, you know, well, better or negative.
The infamous one that we debated ad nauseum, especially with Richard, was the Inceptors for... Weren't they like 35 points in the Warhammer app? But then in Battlescribe and in the like most recent FAQ... it had it as like 25, like a decent chunk of points difference. And weirdly, it turned out based on the latest, not balanced data slate, but when they do all the points updates, it was the higher point. So the Warhammer app was correct. Everything else was wrong. Battlescribe was wrong. The FAQ that it was based on, which was the latest effective points update, was also wrong from Games Workshop. But the app was correct. The Warhammer Plus app was correct. Who knew? Because no one thought of that except Richard. He was the one that said it was that, so he can be smug on that front.
Yeah. But again, to your point though, even Richard makes mistakes though as well, right? Like, and, you know, no, he does on occasion, and look, so do I. I mean, obviously, you know, I feel like mine have a little bit more kind of group fame than Richie's do, but they're there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and to your point, everyone makes mistakes. That's the point.
Exactly.
You know, Richie convinced me that assault marines couldn't deep strike in 40k.
Oh, because he was like, they don't have a jump pack.
They do have a jump pack, but he was like,
they don't gain the deep strike rule or something.
Yeah, it's not on their data sheet or something. And I was like, is that right? And then you actually look it up and you're like, oh wait, no, that's wrong. But for ages I believed him. To my detriment, I was running assault marines in like army lists going, oh yeah, they can't deep strike.
I can't remember what it was, because basically the rule says if you equip them with a jump pack, you just change their movement value.
But no, there is a specific rule in Space Marines that specifically states that they are able to arrive from reserves.
It might be that's in like the reserve rule that talks about. It just wasn't in the place you'd expect it to be. So when you're looking at it wasn't there, and you're like, oh.
But that's the thing, right? Like, that's an honest mistake, as is any of these mistakes that happen. But fortunately for us, Battlescribe is here to help us alleviate some of the more potentially egregious ones. But I think, look, the thing is like, yeah, I think first of all, when we started, when we talked about recording tonight, I was like, oh, we're going to talk about, for the outro, the loss of Battlescribe, and I was ready to basically talk about how bad I thought that was going to be for the overall community. But you know, obviously now the relief is that it's still here, and that's fantastic, or at least we hope so. Obviously, I mean, obviously someone could have hacked that Twitter account and could be spinning a load of lies. I doubt it. I think, you know, it's good news that we're still in a community that has that infrastructure to be able to support our ongoing obsession with small toy soldiers and the games associated with them. Especially given that they're just about to crack the code on Horus Heresy. Like, we're so close to Horus Heresy being perfect on Battlescribe, and that is just going to unlock so much potential for that game. I think once Heresy is fully realized in Battlescribe, we're off to the races.
Well, I mean, I think there's no such thing as fully realized, because as soon as the current iteration of it is realized, you've now just got the Mechanicum release, so that there needs to be added in. There's bound to be new units coming out. You've still got Custodies, so there's still a long way off before like everything is technically in there. But then that's because we're still waiting for everything in Horus Heresy to come out. So
yeah, no, of course, that is 100% true. But at the same time, you know, having Horus Heresy as it is now,
like with just the Marine books.
Well, they're about to be. It's about to include AdMech as of this weekend, isn't it? So anyway, the point is, though, is it's cool and it's exciting and it's great. And again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Having no battle scribe is weird in terms of my muscle memory. The amount of time I spend, you know, mucking around on my phone, writing army lists for battle scribe is quite obscene.
Yeah, I get the feeling that's much more of a hobby for you than it is for me. Like, I'll do it occasionally, but it feels like you do that way more often.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten past. There used to be a time where I used to litter our WhatsApp group with like army lists that I was concocting. And I got to the point where I realized that most people were like, yeah, Dan, we don't care. Like, I don't know what a Dire Avenger does, mate. Like, why are you telling me?
Okay, well, yeah, so there is that issue. Also, I have to say, like, the output of it quite often, and this is just army lists in general, maybe, but especially the way the detailed level in which Battlescribe does it. If you let's talk about the tournament format, right, where it doesn't include any stats or anything like that. It's just the, you know, squad of Dire Avengers. It would be like times 4 like regular dudes with this weapon, then times 1 for the sergeant or whatever. Quite often, I think it's actually very hard to look at a list and know what it is without spending a lot of time looking into it. It's not the most streamlined view because it's going into the full detail of what each person is, and obviously there's always a sergeant and the regular guys, which sort of doubles up on the wording per unit. It'd almost be great if there was like some kind of like visual output where it's like, just show me pretty pictures of all the units, and I can visually see what I'm looking at.
You and your ridiculous over expectations of these people.
But I think that is the perk of the Games Workshop app is, as you're selecting the units, there are pictures.
But if I shared a list with you from that app,
it would still be text based. I know.
It would still be as incomprehensible. I think that's the thing, though. I think like I have another group of friends. I know madness, right? But I do have friends. I know,
not
but
lads.
So the Entoyment boys that are more competitive focused, we have a lot more kind of like list critiquing and debating around that side of things. Because again, we're just a little bit more, that group is a little bit more orientated around the competitive side of things. We do have a bit more conversation about that stuff.
Is it called Try Hards Are Us?
No, it's just called Entoyment 40k or something like that. But yeah, we got an event coming up in Southampton in October. That's happening. Intriguingly, I'm going to be one? Well, I'm playing the Horus Heresy one on the Saturday, but I'm also TOing 40k all weekend.
So you're TOing 40k while simultaneously playing Horus Heresy?
Yes, yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? So I went to TO the event that we had in Bournemouth back in June, or was it May or June? Which, by the way, was crazy. It was like one of the warmest weekends of what has been like one of the warmest years thus far. And people were absolutely buzzing. Like, everyone was down on the beach. It was a really busy day in Bournemouth. And there was us sat in the Bic playing 40k while all these people having like raves outside or whatever. So it was a beautiful demonstration of the library kids in force.
Wow.
the point is that, you know, while that was going on, as I say, I got to chat with the guys from Attrition Wargaming who were doing Horus Heresy, and it just looked like the most fun. I appreciate, obviously, the juxtaposition of what was going on outside the BIC and then what was happening inside. But of the things going on inside, it looked like the most fun thing. So yeah, I have to give it a go. I've got to play at least one Horus Heresy event this year.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm excited for that. But anyway, the point is we're doing that one down in Southampton. They're doing a 1 day of Heresy, but then 40k Brawl / Entoyment are doing 40k for the weekend. Again, it's, you know, it's a proper tourney. You know, people come to win, but if you want, you can wallow around the bottom boards and have a lovely time, should you choose to, in a random place in Southampton near. I don't even know. It's sort of I know where it is, but I can't think of explaining it. But anyway, there you go. Cheap plug. So anyway, yeah, Battlescribe, fun times. Do you know what else was shocking, Phil, that happened in the world of Warhammer 40,000 over the last couple of weeks?
Oh, yes. It is a Leagues of Votan model that you didn't hate.
There you go. There you go. You read my mind. Yep. A Leagues of Votan model. Not just singular, plural.
No, it was a unit.
Two.
Oh, two units or 2 models of the 3?
1 unit, 1 model, as it were.
Right.
So, first of all, we have the Carl. Unleash the Carl. Which is their commander type fella.
Oh, the guy in the red armor. Yeah.
The guy in the red armor with the big axe hanging out on a rock. His face is a bit but the alternate paint job, where he's in the white armor, I can't see it in front of me here. I'm looking at it on Instagram. They haven't posted a picture of his alternate version where he's got the power fist.
No. I'm trying to think if I've even seen that one.
All right, hang on. I'm going to go onto their flipping website, aren't I?
I know. I'm just trying to have a look for it now.
I mean, it's probably a way down the old pecking order at this point. It's you know, it's been time since that came along. But the point is, Phil, regardless of the alternate sculpt for this particular mini, yeah, legitimately an actual League of Votan model that I can legitimately say I like. So yeah, well done them. You know, it can and does happen. And again, I think it's good in a way that, you know, I can acknowledge that I'm not just completely hating on the range. I think, you know, ultimately, if Games Workshop do great stuff, I will acknowledge and appreciate that. But when they do stuff that I feel like isn't quite hitting the mark, I will also talk about that. And as an extension of that, the unit that they put out the other day, the some word I'm not sure I can pronounce, Funderkin, look pretty good as well.
Oh yeah, like it's either Brock or Brocker. I don't know if it's a silent HYR.
Who knows? Don't get me wrong. They're not. This isn't an aesthetic that overly excites me personally. I'm not necessarily keen to kind of pick this unit up myself, but from a design kind of aesthetics and kind of creative perspective, I think the silhouette is cool. I think the you know, the actual kind of face sculpts they've got look, you know, actually, you know, quite cool.
Bit Ghostbusters with the goggles.
Yes, yeah. You know what it is? It really is the goggles that elevate it, and I think, but even just the poses, the bulkiness of them, that kind of almost sort of District 9-esque kind of...
well, very Elysian style.
Yes, sorry, Elysian style, yeah. What's his name? Matt
Damon.
The director.
Oh.
No, the director.
Yes, who did District...
Burnkamp? No?
Blomkamp, yeah.
Blomkamp, there we go. Not Burnkamp, I apologise. Obviously, he's a listener. I've offended him deeply. The point is that this... You know, look, you know, though it may not be something that I personally would seek to collect, and certainly based on some of the other miniatures in the range, I'm not falling over myself to get it, but I can acknowledge when something is good, and that's a good, those are, you know, 3 individual things. They also expanded with more bikes. I like some of the riders, but I still don't like the design of the bike overly. It hasn't won me over with the extra minis, and I'm especially underwhelmed.
Oh, is it these the trike ones with the riders on the back? I think the one with the rider on the back looks the best out of a lot, because that is in homage very much to the original one, which I owned. So I do like that one rather than the kind of scout guy who's sort of just on his own.
Yeah, this is it. There's something about it that isn't really warming to me, but yeah, I mean, it's okay. Like, it's fine. These were always a sort of middle of the road unit to me. I know you were quite passionately liking of. You didn't like these.
Oh yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the first one for sure. Yeah,
but as it's gone along, I mean, seeing more of them, are you slightly more all right with them, or do you think they're still kind of eh?
Well, I think the newer ones are a slight improvement, but I'm still. I mean, I wouldn't get them myself.
No. And that's the thing, right? I mean, you know, the bikes or the trikes or whatever they're called, the things are not the best, but the Chthonian berserkers are just terrible. Just to reiterate that again, like, that is the stuff like where you look at it and you go, that is such a miss. When you compare the berserkers to the Thunderkin, it's like, oh my god, like how can you muck it up that bad?
Well, here's the thing I don't get. So the Thunderkin have like exo armor, right? Because they're carrying big guns. You've then got the berserkers, right? The Chthonian berserkers, who have like giant hammers and power fists, but they're carrying them like with no support whatsoever. And it's like, well, actually, if these guys had the exo armor, it would kind of make sense. But then you also go, why do they need guys with exo armor when they have robots to do all the heavy lifting? It feels like you've got 3 archetypes now within the army to do the exact same thing, which is like carry big heavy things and do heavy duty stuff. So on one of them you've got robots, then on the other one you've got the kin supported with robotic elements in the form of the exosuit, and then you've got like cybernetically enhanced like roided up ones in the form of the berserkers, and it's a really odd choice to do 3 different sort of solutions to what is effectively the same problem. Personally, I like the exosuits. Like, if the whole range was like, we're dudes in exosuits and that's our whole thing, I think visually that would look way more interesting than what they've currently done, which is like a weird mishmash. I mean, the one thing I don't like about the exosuits is the weird little leggy extensions, like the little stilts that they're on. Like, if it was just like their feet were supported better, then that would make more sense. Because it sort of almost feels like a weird joke. It's like, we're small, so let's give them little legs so they're a bit more like of a human height. It feels a bit of an
it's not much of an advantage. Like, they've added an extra, like, 6 inches or something.
No, I know it's not a huge amount, but it's every inch counts, Dan.
Well, that is true. Lord, I know. Look, it's nice to see some good stuff coming into this range. It's good to see that they've got some people working on this stuff who are able to do interesting things with the concept. It's just a shame that it's not as readily available as the stuff that's seemingly a bit poorer in quality. But hey ho, look, there you go. I mean, a shot in the arm for the Leagues of Voltan. Hopefully, we see more models that continue in this vein. And
sorry, I'm just looking at the commander guy. What's he called? Carl, right?
Carl, yeah.
Like, the artwork, way better than the actual model. Like, his little plume, like that he's it's not an actual plume. It's more like a T-bar, right? Crest that goes horizontally and sort of across him, like shoulder to shoulder. looks visually way more impressive than what they've ultimately ended up going for, which is these like almost like hood style ones where they arch over from the back to the forehead, which is what the final model actually has. I think if
you see now, I thought he was white, but he's green.
Yes,
the green one.
yeah,
with the
he's
power
green one with power fist. It's like they both got it on. Like
If-
the mask is cool, and like if the range all had that kind of
If
mask,
the Rangel had those masks, oh my god,
so much better. And yeah, the sideways like leader back banner effectively from the artwork. Well, it's interesting because actually in the artwork you've got that for him. And then if you look down at the front, which is obviously like the squad sergeant, they've got the standard one going over. That makes way more sense. And then you've got, because he's got the big, yeah, it's a bit weird because he almost looks like a berserker with the hammer, but he's not. And then you've got the guy at the very front with the helmet on. That looks super cool. It's like, yeah, in the artwork, they look sort of phenomenal, but that just doesn't seem to translate to the models for some reason.
I've just been reminded that Hearthguard are a thing as well, which is yet another exosuit thing.
Oh yes, big bulky,
awful. It's so weird, like, you know, because this is the thing. I'm sort of looking at these Thunderkin going, oh, maybe there's a chance, and then you start going back through it and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot this existed, and oh god, yeah, look at these, and it's like, oh dear. Yeah, the Hearthguard, what a misfire.
Yeah, it's weird. In the artwork, he almost looks more humanoid in terms of his proportions, right? He's not very squatty. But the model of it is the leader is very, not only is it very squat, it's also very like heroic scale. So it's like the power fist is just way too big for him in comparison to the artwork, which I think looks just a bit nicer. Because it's just a bit better proportioned, and same with the axe. But it's an improvement. It's better than a lot of the others. It's in the upper half, I would say, of the Votan models so far.
Agreed. New Khorne Berserkers.
Oh, what are they?
Well, they showed one sculpt of the new Khorne Berserker. Have you not seen it?
That was a while ago, wasn't it?
That was somewhere between now and when we last recorded.
Yes. No, I remember. Yeah.
So
he's in pretty cool.
Up.
Yeah.
He's amazing. It's like, I mean, what's funny is I think they still sell the current Khorne Berserkers, and unlike, say, the Armored Sentinels that people kind of wanted versus the upcoming new Sentinel that people have got visuals on, I mean, I can't imagine why anyone in their right mind would be going out and buying those mad old Khorne Berserkers when these guys are on the horizon. I mean, they look amazing. And what I think is quite obvious from Games Workshop's perspective is they've gone with the most generically Khorne Berserker to show off. But I really hope that we'll see some additional, like, more potentially like feral elements that will be added in. I'd like to see, you know, Berserkers that are maybe a little bit more, you know, berserk in terms of their pose, maybe, you know, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, yeah, it's a pretty iconic looking. It's sort of by the numbers, but yeah, just it looks way better than. It's because it's like when they updated the Terminators, and we were like, it barely looked like it changed much, because that was so similar and so in keeping, but they just made it a touch nicer. And they've done the same thing here, where they've not really evolved the design all that much. It's still very much in keeping, but it's just a reimagining of how you would do it today with the better technology that I have for making minis. And that's exactly what they've done. So yeah, hopefully they do some of the more, as you say, berserkers.
Well, I mean, when you look at what they achieved in Age of Sigmar with the Blades of Khorne, when you look at things like I forget all their names, but like the guy with the hammer on a chain, and the dude with the hammer and the axe, I think, even down to some of the more kind of like barbarian-esque characters they had in the Blades of Khorne, I think, you know, you can see that there was so much potential there to kind of really communicate and put across that kind of feral aspect to the Khorne forces. And I'll be really excited to see if they can inject that into this. So I can imagine berserkers with big axes, or maybe I don't know, axes on chains as they're like flipping around and going loopy, or I don't know, like just stuff that's a bit more kind of absurd. Because obviously, you know, World Eaters now is its own codex. You know, obviously Berserkers is one unit. What else are we getting? Are we going to get more, you know, Berserkers? Obviously, we can expect to get the Butcher Terminators. I forget what those Terminators are called. Are they called something Butchers?
Oh, I don't know.
I forget. Yeah, no, there's a name for them. I've just completely forgotten them. But yeah, like I think. Oh yeah, no, that's a promising sign of things to come. And obviously, you know, we've obviously seen. What's his name? They're Primarch. My brain's gone all foggy with my illness. Angry Ron, that's the words I couldn't find. Yes. So obviously we've seen him as well, and that's incredibly cool. I'd love to see what new kind of like Laud models they're going to get, like what new kind of characters and things are going to get added to the fold.
Yeah, because if they do it on the same scale and scope of, you know, I think Thousand Suns didn't have. I think Death Guards probably out of the two had quite a huge amount. So if you get as many different units and models as Death Guard, or at least when they first came out and not necessarily subsequent updates, that's a huge. That's like a brand new army basically in terms of the amount of stuff that's going to be appearing for them, which is super exciting.
Yeah, I mean, Death Guard from a, you know, character perspective, they got loads of characters, not just obviously Mortarion, but they also got the Plague Lords, the Plague Casters, the
Slotty Bowl Piper, like little characters.
No, that was the Snotty Bowl Piper.
Is that just demons?
That's demons, I think. But they even had things like, I don't know, I think they had Plague Surgeon.
The Tallyman.
The Tallyman, yeah. So, like, yeah, loads of characters, which is cool. And then, obviously, specialist units. Yeah, I think...
Specialist vehicles, specialist terrain.
Yeah.
They got all sorts over time.
So, you know, if World Eaters get that, you know, they get their equivalent of Pox Walkers, they get their equivalent of Terminators, which are the Red Butchers, I've just remembered. So yeah, no, it's exciting, man. I mean, I'm excited for Khorne. I think it's going to be groovy. That was it, I think, in terms of new 40k stuff that's going on. There's some heresy stuff that's trickling through, but as I've said many times, we're not trying to turn this into a heresy podcast.
No, I know. There's more reveals coming, which
we'll talk about in the next episode for sure.
Yeah,
so that's which event is that for?
I want to say it's not Adepticon, it's
American Thingamabib.
Yeah, it's something like Gen Con or something.
Why not? We'll go with Gen Con. Gen Con is happening, everybody. Get excited for Gen Con. It may well not be Gen Con.
Nova Open, that's it.
The Nova Open.
I wasn't even close.
Isn't Nova Open the one that's owned by the guy that works for Games Workshop?
I mean, it might have. I don't know if it still is.
Who knows? Anyway. Yeah, so they're doing a big thing at the Nova Open, which would be cool. So we look forward to seeing that. It'll probably be a load more World Eaters stuff, which would be pretty great. Maybe a little bit more insight.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing some Guard stuff, because they will be the last codex to come out, assuming they're coming out before Leagues of Votan and World Eaters. They're the last codex, funnily enough, to come out for like all the 8th edition codexes. The very last one, despite being literally the 2nd or 3rd codex that came out, so it is the oldest codex probably in existence ever.
Yeah. It's pretty much. Well, not ever, because obviously you have to remember times where we weren't in a 3-year release cycle. I feel like the Drakari players have probably got a leg up on you there.
Don't know. I'll fight you.
They had the same codex from 3rd edition till 5th edition.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe.
Admittedly, they did have a second printing, I think, in 4th edition. And their 5th edition book came at like the end, well, like the last 2 years, maybe a 5th edition, I think. So yeah, so what was that like? I think their book came out in like 98, and then the next one came out in like 2010. So there you go, 12 years.
It's quite a while.
Yeah, so I feel like they probably can consistently be considered, or maybe even like Sisters of Battle.
Oh,
officially.
well, technically, because they almost like weren't even officially supported.
Well, they were
still around.
officially supported in 2nd edition, and they had a series of PDFs and things. That was their kind of weird situation. In fact, actually, no, they had a 4th edition codex, didn't they? Codex Witch Hunters.
Yeah, they did.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So they went from 4th edition all the way to 8th. So
Impressive.
yeah, pretty crazy. Anyway, there you go. Demons next time, possibly. They go on pre-order this weekend, don't
Yeah, so should be. Yeah, we should get it halfway through. It's a real rush though to get it done if we do it for the next.
they? Yeah, we
episode.
might not do Demons. We'll see how it goes.
Because it basically gives us a week to record, which for a codex review isn't long at all.
Well, unless we just try and do what we did with Chaos Space Marines and actually just get it into that, one session and just be happy with whatever we get done. I thought we did well with Chaos Space Marines. I thought
it was a good one.
energy to that.
Yeah, no, that was good fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
That was good fun.
Enjoyed that episode.
Yeah, no, me too. I think Demons actually could be pretty entertaining as well. I mean, I have a history with Demons. I know them relatively well. I have played them. I've played against them an awful lot as well, so, we'll see how it goes. But that'll do, I reckon. Thanks and goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Sorry I've been snotty the whole time through this. As I said, I'm ill. Bye now.
Bye.